Now I'm live. Let's see if I'm live now. It says I'm live there. Yeah, so I actually thought I hit the live button. I didn't. So my bad. So what I'll do is I will, I guess I'll play back the conversation I just had with this guy here. His name is Parkergetajob. Let me share this first onto X. So the whole time I thought I was live, I wasn't. But I can rewind it and listen back to it. He said my gain was too high, but I got it all the way down. Where's the blue screen? CGI budget taking a hit? Yeah, CGI budget taking a hit. Let's see here. How am I going to set this up? I apologize for not hitting that live button. Let's go like this. I'll fix that later. I'll take you. Yeah, there I am.
Count, you know? Yeah, TikTok needs to free Parker. That's so fucking real, dude. That's so fucking real. It's very unfortunate, everyone. Very unfortunate. But yeah, again, everyone, I just want to let everyone know. Go over to my YouTube. That's the best place to go right now. Parker Get a Job. That's where you're actually going to be able to hear the debates. I can't even get the debates to play through this. So that's like it would literally be in my...
So this is Parker Get a Job. Someone in one of my comment section a while back said I should talk to this guy. And then I saw he just went live, so I thought, oh, here's my chance to get in, one of the first people. And so I did.
Why? What? Like you voted against what?
The first guy was
why'd you vote for Donald Trump?
Here we go. Here I am. Immigration was probably the #1 thing for me.
Okay. What about immigration?
He's a fast talker. I think that it can be very harmful for a society to have too many people come in too fast unlawfully. And so I was hoping for a orderly, lawful way of immigrants coming in.
Mm-hmm. So do you agree with the bipartisan border bill by the Democrats?
There were some good things in it, some bad. Well, I don't know. I really don't think it was needed to accomplish the goal.
What's the goal?
The goal is to have more lawful entry of immigrants.
Okay, so you want more legal immigration. Okay, so then why don't we just make it so that anyone who's in the country who hasn't committed a violent crime or has a history of committing violent crime or any bad crime like that, well, then they should be allowed to be a citizen, because then that would incentivize them to get legal citizenship, correct?
To me, then it becomes an issue of fairness. So have you ever been to Disneyland or Disney World?
I've been to Disneyland, yeah.
Have you ever been in one of those long lines for an hour? Mm-hmm. And then how would you feel if someone cut in front of you and didn't have to wait at all?
They actually have those things, you know, that they have like at Disneyland. They have like these little passes that every once in a while,
yeah, but
get to the front of the line.
Can you answer my? So he's trying to talk about fast passes. I'm going like, my question. Let's say you personally,
totally fine with it.
You're totally fine with waiting in line for 1 hour, and then someone who hasn't waited at all just cuts in front of the line.
Yeah, that's the process of how Disneyland operates.
No. Oh, look at that smile on his face.
I'm totally fine with Disneyland operating in the way it does currently in terms of the
So line. You're okay with line cutting?
Yeah, the fast passes, yeah.
No, I'm not talking about... yeah, I asked him to put me on screen and he refused to do it. He just wanted my voice. I'm not talking about fast passes. I'm talking about It doesn't have to be Disney. It could be anything, a long line. You're in line and someone just cuts it in front of you and doesn't have to wait at all. You're okay with that?
If it's an unjustified line, then absolutely. Like, I think that the line shouldn't even exist.
An unjustified line.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'll give you an example, right? If it is the case that like there's going to be some unnecessarily lengthy line that you don't need to go through in order to be able to have a efficient process, like you're going to just literally allow more people in quicker, right, through having a investment in the system to make it go faster. But we choose not to, so we make the system, right, purposefully, right, like backed up. Obviously it would make sense in that context because it's purposefully.
So for people who just got here, I went live with this guy about half an hour ago, maybe more, 45 minutes ago. And I thought I hit the live button on my channel and I forgot I didn't. So now I'm just playing it back.
Backed up, right? And it's unnecessary.
Purposely backed up. But do you think it takes time to do background checks on people?
Sure, but not 5 to 7 years on average. Allison, thank you for the 5 membership subscriptions. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Allison. You have to agree with that. That's purposefully backing up the immigration process because you want to limit how many people are coming to the country.
What makes you think it's purposeful?
Because that's what Republicans say all the time. Donald Trump says it. It's not. It's very clear in the rhetoric. I mean, how many people do you want in the country every year?
The Trump administration has never said we purposely want it to be slow. We purposely want it to go through the port of entry illegally.
Yeah, to immigrate. Do you think there's a specific number?
No, I don't think. There's good data on what's the best optimum, but my main issue is that we should know who's coming into the country as best as we can. That's reasonable, right?
Oh, absolutely. That means that we should incentivize people who are in the country who are undocumented, right, by giving them a pathway to citizenship if they've not committed violent crimes or bad crimes, right?
Yet,
so that we know who they are.
Yet, right? So you rather vet them while they're in the country rather than out?
I would rather vet them at any point in time in that process.
Oh, see. Yeah, poor guy.
I'd rather them be vetted rather than not vetted. Correct.
Well, let me ask you.
I'd rather them to be not exploited than to be
right. I agree with you. It's better to vet than not vet. But you just said
I would rather vet before, right? But given that the process is inefficient, I understand that we would vet after in some circumstances.
Okay, but you would prefer we vet before they even come into the country, yes?
Absolutely, but there are plenty of tourists that come to the country that aren't fully vetted in a certain sense. Allison, thank you for the $5. Thank you so much. So I don't know why you're only applying this process.
Yeah, getting a passport's a type of vetting. No, I would apply this to even people flying in from other countries. And
asylum. You agree that the asylum process, right? In some instances, there's going to be people with valid asylum claims that before we even went through the process, right, we're going to allow them in the country. Or do you fully and 100% disagree with the asylum process?
During the Biden administration, I wouldn't say fully, but mostly, yeah.
Oh, okay. What do you mean by so there are some circumstances at least where you do believe that they should be able to stay in the country before you actually vet the claim?
No, that they have to go through the port of entry, number one, and then that's where they're vetted.
Okay, so vetted at the port of
That's
entry.
where
so
the vetting process begins.
You do it immediately. Okay, so then you don't need a 6 month. You don't even need a 6 month process under your view. You don't even need a 5-year process. You could do it immediately at the border for everyone.
No. You can still do your preliminary vetting at the port of entry. But what happened under the Biden administration is people were crossing at a non-port of entry. Doug, you sort of dodged the question about a bipartisan border bill. Key point: Trump wanted the bill to fail to keep the immigration issue alive for the election. No, John Engstrom, I think the bipartisan border bill, it was irrelevant. It wasn't needed. And the evidence for that is, remember Biden's numbers of illegal entries were sky high, and then public pressure and the oncoming election caused him to basically put quotas on how many they would let across between ports of entry. Remember that? That was evidence that you didn't need the bipartisan bill to lower the number of encounters. And then when Trump became president, the number of encounters in illegal border crossings dropped by 94, 95, 99%, something like that. No bill needed. No bill needed. All you have to do is enforce current laws. That's why the bipartisan border bill was not needed. And I believe I said that. Maybe it's coming up. country, claiming asylum, and then getting to stay in the country.
You understand that he did sign a bill specifically to get people to go through ports of entry, and also I don't even see how that
Right, yeah.
I don't even see how that is an issue, given
But
that
the
they're
question is
seeking
of
asylum.
enforcement.
Under international law, they did not have to go through a port of entry. That's something designated specifically that Republicans begged Biden for, and Biden literally conceded to the Republicans on that one.
Well, if you're going through by international law, then you have to go to the first country that will
I'm not
take
sure what he just said is true. I gotta look that up later.
you, which would be
That's not-
Mexico for many of them.
Can you wait? That's not necessarily true.
Are you sure?
No, it's not the next country right next to you.
No, the first country that will take you.
Yeah, I'm quite sure that's true.
It's not the first country that will just take you. It's going to be give me the language specifically that it uses. Isn't it about like it's about going to be like
Quote to me international law, please.
that would
Well, you
protect
can Google it
based
for
upon-
yourself right now.
It's
but
going to be based upon that protected class. So in some circumstances, right, the countries right next to them don't protect right against won't protect them in the case of that protected class. So they would be at the same issue that they would be seeking asylum from in the first place. Roxanne, thank you for the $5. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
was that the
Thank you
case
so
for
much.
Mexico?
It depends on the context. There are some people who do seek asylum from Mexico, but that's not true always. Now, for people who do seek asylum from Mexico, do you think they should remain in Mexico while they seek asylum?
Yeah. What's wrong? What's wrong with that?
They're
I think I
seeking
changed my
asylum
mind
from
on that
Mexico.
answer.
Why would they remain in the country?
Oh no. Oh,
they're
you said
from?
Oh, I did change it that quickly.
from Mexico. Yeah, I would say they would have to show that Mexico is persecuting them. Do you think Mexico is persecuting people?
Wait, but while they show that process,
So the question he asked is, if you have a remain in Mexico policy and people are actually being persecuted from the Mexican government who are Mexican, should they remain in Mexico? That question wasn't clear to me and then I said no. And then I said I would grant an exception to that. But that's purely a hypothetical. Well, not currently it's purely a hypothetical. That's not what's currently happening. And most people that have come through the southern border through Mexico are not Mexican.
can it be in some circumstances there are valid asylum claims from Mexico? Absolutely. And you understand that it doesn't have to be straight from like the Mexican government. It could be based on any other type of context, right?
John Engström says the bill would have enforced current laws. The Biden administration will enforce current laws. You don't need new bills, John. I'm not sure why it's so difficult for people to understand that. Immigration, illegal immigration, what goes up and up and up. We need to sign a border bill. Trump says no. Democrats are mad because Trump said no and the Republicans squashed the immigration bill. What happens? Biden takes executive order action and immigration numbers go down. Proof you didn't need the bill. But Trump gets elected. Immigration numbers went up with Biden, went down a little bit with Biden, and then with Trump went almost down to zero. We need laws, more laws. No, you don't. All you have to do is enforce it. It's amazing to me. I think a lot of people who lean left, who are Democrats, are not even aware of the numbers of just how low the illegal immigration is right now. It's like in the hundreds per day at the most. And it used to be close to 10,000 a day under the Biden administration. I mean, either it has to do with who's president, or just the world has gotten so good over the last few months that people don't need to flee into the United States anymore, right?
If there's a valid claim of persecution from Mexico and you're a Mexican, then you would go through the port of entry. And then in that case, I'd be okay with them staying in the country.
But before you validate the claim?
Yeah, but
Okay.
that hasn't been the case for the last 4 years.
So then why were you bringing this up as like an issue with me that like I'd be okay with people in the country before we validated the claim?
Okay, but did you hear how reasonable I was? I said in some cases, yeah, I would be okay with it. But would you admit that in most cases in the past 4 years, that most people were
so
not?
here's the key. When you're talking to people who view you as an enemy and you're talking to them one-on-one. Now, this guy views me as an enemy. I'm quite sure of it. I'm a bad person. We can't be friends. In fact, at the end, you'll see, I asked him, can we be friends? Like, not that I'm asking to be friends, but could we hypothetically be friends and still have these disagreements? And he basically said, no, we can't. It was quite shocking. It's just the emotional reaction to a disagreement on some issues just says no, we cannot be friends. And I'm trying to think of, would I be that way ever? I would say that there could hypothetically be some issues that if someone says to me, Doug, I believe we should have policies to kill all your family members. Can we be friends? Can we just agree to disagree on that policy? Yeah, there's a limit. But for most things political, I don't think that limit is even close to being breached.
Not seeking asylum from Mexico, meaning they're Mexicans seeking asylum
Yeah,
from.
I agree. Most people were not.
Okay, so now practically we have a situation where if someone is claiming asylum, and by the way, the vast majority of people who claim asylum, their asylum cases are rejected. It's the vast majority. Are you aware of that?
So that's you're talking like 60% for other types of administrations. It was bumped up to 90% by Trump's administration. So I don't see that why that would be rightful, given like the
No, that's showing you that when due process is enacted, there's the
no.
Listen to me.
There was a
Let me finish my sentence.
Donald Trump explicitly decided to do more.
Even with Biden, Obama, I think historically the vast majority of people who claim
he can't possibly know the exact numbers on this, but let's say even if it's true, that people who claim asylum, 60% rejected under a Biden and jumped to 90% under Trump. That's not necessarily a bad thing. What if it's the truth is that 90% of the asylum seekers are full of crap? Then it's just showing that the Trump administration is more accurate in finding the fakers out there. Right? But no immigration, no immigrants, they wouldn't lie. They're precious, wholesome, pure people who just are seeking a better life.
Asylum do not meet the requirements of asylum.
When
Do you agree or disagree?
So do you think 60% is a vast majority?
A majority. Okay, we can get
Sure.
rid of the word vast, if you like. But
Sure.
do you agree with that?
Sure. That means you need to rework the process to make it faster for people who are for us to process the claims for people who are already in the country, because the issue is that you're gonna have 40% of people who have to stay in the countries that they're seeking asylum from in order to be able to, like, who have valid asylum claims, and we want them to, if they have valid asylum claims, to be in the country. I thought you guys were so pro due process, right?
Yeah, well, if we do due process, historically it's been shown that people who claim asylum are full of it.
So again, 40% of people, right, being valid asylum
He wants to
claims,
focus on the
right? You would not want to treat those 40% of valid asylum claims.
Yeah, see, you notice the difference. He leans left, and so he has more of a feel sorry for him in him than a conservative does, at least on this issue. And so he wants to focus on the valid claims, whereas I'm focusing on the invalid claims, which are the majority.
Yeah, now if they have a valid, is your main issue like the speed?
Yeah, I think the speed should go faster. That's what the.
Well, I don't necessarily agree. I don't necessarily disagree with you on speed, but I'm going to more of a fundamental issue of do we do this vetting process, this more so within the country or without? And I already conceded to you that there might be cases where it can be within, but I would say for the majority of the time it should be without. Meaning that we do our vetting, the due process, while people are outside the country. Isn't that reasonable?
So I mean, I think that,
yeah, again, when you're dealing with someone who's your enemy in quotes, like this guy, use the word reasonable over and over again. Isn't this reasonable? And of course it is.
In plenty of circumstances, we can do it while they're within, and it makes sense for us to do it while they're within, because you're going to be impacting a high percentage of the population that have valid asylum claims.
Right, but that's not what I asked. I asked, would you agree that there are at least some cases, if not the majority of the cases,
there could be some cases, right, where there could be, like, say, a particular thing that there's a flag in the system where this person could have a criminal background. Then you would want it in that context. Right. Other than that, obviously, like, I think that people should be allowed to stay in the country, right, while their asylum claim is being processed. Allison, thank you so much for the 10 membership subscriptions. Thank you so much, Allison. W's for Allison in the chat. Thank you so much.
Well, so yeah, maybe it's just agree to disagree on that one. But what do you believe that every immigrant that comes into the country, oh, well,
Here,
let's
can I ask
put-
you a certain question? I think I could frame it in a way in which would give us productive dialogue. So, in terms of this, how many, like, in a general terms, like, how long do you think it should take for people to get into the country?
how long it
Should take.
should it? That's such a subjective question. I mean,
Yeah, of course, that's why I asked you.
I think several years is okay, because, and here's why. I think it takes time to vet. I think it also takes time to see what's needed for the country. Like, I'm not just talking about asylum now. I'm talking about all cases of immigration. So depending on what industries need what workers and so forth, I think that all takes time. And my, I guess, presupposition is that the United States government doesn't owe immigrants a thing. And that's what we might disagree on that. You might think that there's an inherent responsibility of the United States to save as many people in the world as they can. Although I kind of agree with the sentiment that it's nice to help people, I would disagree with the sentiment that the United States has an obligation to save the world. And so if, let's say it takes 10 years, and we both would agree that that's too long.
Yeah. I wonder what he's thinking right now. Because I think what I'm saying is so incredibly reasonable. He's trying to think of how can I push back against this?
Long. Well, it sucks for the immigrant, but we don't owe the immigrant anything.
Okay, here's my question.
Did you
Alice,
hear what I said? I know you were very
Yes.
busy doing other
Yes.
stuff.
I was typing specifically down a note so that I could refer to you and respond to you.
Okay,
Is
okay.
that fair? Right.
That's
so
fair. But by the way, you can show my face if you want. It makes for better dialogue, I think.
sure. So in terms of Ellis Island, right? Like, do you disagree with Ellis Island, right? Level immigration in the early 1900s, because it was a lot faster than that.
Do I disagree with Ellen a lot faster than what?
Do you know what Ellis Island is?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the early immigration in the early 20th century, but what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, I'm asking you, do you disagree with the immigration that came to the country?
The speed?
right? Yeah.
Or the...
the speed, or just in general, like the...
No, I don't necessarily
don't
disagree
come-
with the speed.
Oh, okay, but that was a lot faster than a few years.
Okay, well, what's your point?
Then why do you think it should have been faster then, but not now?
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did say it should take years.
I said
How
it
long
would
did it
take
take you
years
to
to
Ellis
vet.
Island?
Probably like within days. Like let me check.
So they had no vetting then?
Very little. What was...
Well, then I changed my answer. If they didn't do any vetting, that's bad. And I think you agree with that.
And things are so much different.
Hold up. Let me check. Let me make sure, because I could be wrong on it being days. Let me make sure that...
Yeah, that
I have
seems
to
like
check processing
that's
time.
too...
No.
Yeah, things were so different. There was a huge need for workers, and there was no social safety net back then. Basically, if you came to this country and you weren't productive, if you weren't, a productive member of society, you literally died. Here now, you can come and society will take care of you.
It very well could be even shorter than that too. So I have to check. Let me look. I'm looking up average processing time. Give me a second.
Because we both agree that there should be vetting. And if they're doing vetting like in an hour...
Approximately
okay.
3 to 7 hours. Wow.
Okay, yeah.
Wow,
Now-
dude. Really? That's nuts. Yeah. No,
Would you say...
What's interesting is even he admits that's nuts. 3 to 7 hours. Like, how good of a job can you do vetting someone? I don't know. Maybe it's possible. But if you're also looking at things like, what are you coming in the country for? What do you want to do? If you're taking a job of an American, is that part of what was going on back in the early 1900s? No, I don't think so.
Fast?
So then you disagree with that, correct?
I find it. I'm skeptical you can do proper vetting in that short of time frame, and I think
I'm-
you are too.
Doug, if your worry is that immigrant abusing welfare, why not just make so immigrant can't access welfare? The problem with that, the dude, is that there's ways to get money to immigrants other than through quote unquote welfare. And we've seen this now with agencies like USAID putting money into NGOs and NGOs putting money into the hands of illegal immigrants. That's the problem. But I don't disagree with the sentiment. Like, if you're here illegally and then you try to access welfare or even a hospital or a school, and then I would want proof of legal residency before you get any access to any social program. Now, if they're dying, you can do a nice thing and keep them alive long enough, patch them up in time to deport them. But for the left, like, even what I'm saying right now is just so shocking and so crazy to them that they can't fathom that I don't have any type of compassion for these people. But the thing is, this is why highly compassionate people should not be in charge of the border or law enforcement, because they end up making bad decisions because they follow their heart.
Okay, but so then you think that the group of people that's in the United States is sufficient enough currently, right? That we should maintain it, correct?
Maintain what?
The population, right? The population that came from those immigrants.
He's making assumptions
right?
about
That
the
population is
left and
good,
right.
correct?
Some good, some bad, just like the immigrants today.
Mostly good,
We
correct?
got to vet them.
Mostly good, though, correct?
So
you
yeah,
could
I would say
that
so.
So that you could
Mostly
say
good.
Wait, so you could say that you think that there should be a little bit more vetting, but the fact that they were able to do it in 3 to 7 hours then, right, is actually diabolical, right? In comparison to the fact that it takes this
What was
long.
different back in the early 1900s compared to today?
They didn't have computers.
You tell me.
I'm asking you.
It's going to be less technology.
And what else? What about think what government's role has been and was?
So you're saying that like government's role wasn't to maintain the safety of people?
No. How many social programs were available in the early 1900s?
Not very many. I'm not disputing that.
Okay. So do you think there's more at stake now compared to back then?
But my point is that you do agree with this type of immigration, and Trump supporters typically do agree with this type of.
Hey, if you can, I don't disagree.
And they typically agree with that, probably because most of the immigrants who came from there are European.
What is your first name? Parker?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure that we disagree on. If you can vet efficiently, I'm all for that. If you can actually do a thorough vetting within hours, sign me up.
Okay. So then you.
So we don't disagree on that, but we both agree though that vetting should be done, right?
Absolutely.
And we both agree it should be done prior to entry, correct?
Not in all instances. We both
right. But mostly, right?
Oh, obviously that'd be preferable, right? But not in all instances would that be the case, and I'm
okay
with it not being the case.
So if you're okay with, or if we agree that the vetting should be mostly done prior to entry, not all the time.
Say that's preferably to do so.
Would you say that's what happened in the last 4 years under the Biden administration?
I would think plenty were, right, and that they tried to do
the majority. Is my question.
They tried to do a policy particularly for that, and again, Republicans didn't want it, right?
But that was my question. My question: do you think it actually happened? That there was thorough vetting prior to entry?
Typically,
really?
Yes.
And
whoa. Thorough vetting. Millions and millions of people crossing at non-ports of entry. From my understanding, at most they got a 30-minute questionnaire. Do you feel like you're persecuted in your country? Yes, I feel that. Come on in.
So the vetting was just bad, and so many criminals did get through.
I think. Wait, so criminals? Where are you getting criminals? You're scared about criminals coming to the country, but you're not scared about them being president.
No, hang on. Do you disagree
you're not scared about them being released into the country by the criminal president
Parker,
of the United States? You didn't care about that.
Parker, true or false? Criminals came into the country.
obviously there were some proportion of people, but it was a smaller proportion of people than natural
Correct.
U.S. citizens. So
Correct.
if anything, they reduced the probability of there being violent criminals in the country.
Let's say it's 1/10.
Did you guys understand what he just said? He's saying, okay, let's say bad people make up 5% of society. Then you get a whole bunch of immigrants in, and only 1% of them are bad. So by letting a whole bunch of immigrants in, we take that 5%, we dilute it with the 1%, and we get, let's say, a number of 4%. It's come down. So we're lowering the probability of crime. That's how his brain thinks. So let in everybody.
It's
Did
the
you hear
normal
what I said?
population.
Can you repeat
Yeah.
me what I just said?
You said that the immigrants coming in have a lower propensity to crime or a percentage of the general population than the Native American.
So if anything, they reduced the crime rate.
Okay. Yes. Now let me ask you: if
Okay,
we had
if you concede to that, that's hilarious.
no, I can concede it, and still it doesn't change my point.
It does. If immigrants
Parker,
reduce
listen.
the crime rate, then why are you arguing that they're bringing crime into the country?
Because they are.
True or false? Criminals entered the country during the
Sure.
Biden administration.
True or
Now-
false? Right. There were less criminals, right, in the country, right,
You
because
notice how
of
hard it is for me to talk in this situation. And I brought this up to him that this is his show, and so he can do this, of course. But I compared him to Trump. You're an authoritarian in the way you conduct your live streams. Oh, he did not like that.
immigration to a higher extent.
Yeah, as a percentage, I can give you that. But now, if you had 100, let's say there was only 100 criminals in the country, do you want it to be 101, just to lower the percentage?
If there were more people in the country, it would make sense.
Whoa.
So, okay, this is a fundamental disagreement. I think a lot of people on the left
Wait,
and right
oh,
have.
Okay, well then you don't want people to have more babies because there will be more criminals when they have babies.
Sure, if we could, in my opinion, if we could deport the criminals that are Native American, I would.
What are you talking about, bro? I know.
What are you talking about? Let's take a very extreme case. We got, let's say we have 1,000 serial child rapists in the United States of America, but they're all U.S. citizens. Question: are you for deporting them to a deserted island? Maybe we'll leave some tools and food for them there so they can start the survival process. I'm for deporting them. Now, if your bleeding heart is so bleeding that you'd say, no, we got to allow the serial child rapists to stay in our country. My intuition pump is, you're crazy. The United States becomes a better place when you take the evil out of it. But the problem is, it's not easy. Our current laws, our current system says you cannot deport U.S. citizens. But you can prevent the child rapists from entering.
No,
What are you talking about? Seriously, Parker,
No,
would
I'm saying
you?
that you wanted it to prevent? So I was just giving you an example, right? You should prevent people from getting more criminals into the country, right? From U.S. citizens that would be born in the country.
Right, but we can't deport.
So
We can't
prevent people from
deport.
giving birth.
Parker, we cannot deport U.S. citizens, but we can prevent entry of immigrants who are criminals,
listen,
and you
but
are for that.
Listen, but you can prevent if you in the same type of way people from getting pregnant. Then, right?
You can prevent.
Yes,
What kind
birth
of
control
rabbit
prevents
trail are you
people-
going down right now?
Birth control prevents people from getting pregnant, right?
So let me see if I can steelman you. You're saying
Abortion
that,
also prevents people from being pregnant.
yeah. So you're saying that
I'm kind of treating him like a child right now.
you are trying to say that we should allow criminals to come in because we can't stop people from having babies?
You're not listening properly.
No, I am listening. I'm trying to.
Yeah, that's basically what he's saying. He's saying we should allow a whole bunch of people come in, even though some of them are criminals, because it will dilute the population of criminals. And if you say no to that, Doug, then you might as well say no to having people having babies, because a certain percentage of people having babies, those babies will end up being criminals. That's what he's saying. And I'm saying, but we can't deport those babies because they're U.S. citizens. But we can stop and deport these criminals because they're not U.S. citizens. So let's take that easy path first. And then we can jail up the U.S. citizens second. Well, maybe at the same time.
Figure out what your point is.
Wow. If that's what you're not listening at all, right? I'm giving you a critique to your position in terms of a logical extreme,
Yeah,
right?
I
Because it is
understood
the case that you think that there's nominally more criminals in the country. That means it's a worse off set of occurrences, right? So if
Yes.
there were a greater population, right, of U.S. born citizens, right, there would be more crime nominally, right? But
Right.
yet you would acknowledge that you would still see that as preferably.
Right. I would prefer less
Oh,
criminals, yes.
Wait, no. Okay, if you'd prefer less criminals, well, then you'd prefer less Americans.
But the difference between, I see what you're doing, but the difference,
Yeah, in a sense, I don't disagree with what he's saying. I prefer less criminals. Certain percentage of the population are criminals. So therefore, conclusion, I prefer less Americans. In that sense, I agree with him. If I could take the worst of the bunch, the 1%, 2% of Americans that are really at their core destructive to society, if I could vaporize them, I would. If I could Thanos them, I would. It would make the country better. I dare any left-leaning, granola-crunching, tree-hugging, progressive woke person to disagree with that. But unfortunately, we can't Thanos people.
is we cannot control that as easily as we can control immigration.
Oh, yes.
Unless you want to go
you can make-
say,
you
if you
can-
want to
you
force
can make-
sterilization and that
No,
sort
no.
of thing.
No, you could make abortion legal in the first trimester. Am I right?
Oh, now
It is legal in the United States.
Okay, this is the first time we were talking about immigration. He brings up abortion because he knows nothing about me, and he assumes I'm pro-life. He assumes, he has in his head that, oh, if I'm a Trump supporter, I must be against all abortion. And so I let him run with that for a little bit. I don't think I told him I was an atheist, a naturalist, but that would have really thrown him for a loop.
It's,
Oh, so you think it should be, right?
I'm actually,
Federally, right?
yes. I think abortion should be legal. I would say before what most people would say consciousness or
Oh,
the
okay.
neural network.
Then here's my question: would you vote for Donald Trump if it is the case that he wanted to leave women's right to vote up to the states?
Yes. You Yes.
Yes. I do think it should be a state thing.
Women's right to vote?
Oh, women's right to vote? Oh, I thought you said abortion.
See, even then I thought he said abortion. So now he's trying to put a parallel of women's right to vote versus abortion. So he's saying, since the women's right to vote should be a national thing, abortion should be a national thing. That's the argument he's making. And I'm saying, no, they're two different things. But so now we're talking about women's right to vote.
No, I'm talking about women's right to vote
No, I would be against that.
being left of the states.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't vote for him in that context?
See, again, this is such a stupid question. Here's two people running for president. They have a list of beliefs and policies and all these things. This one little thing, if this is, you wouldn't vote for him then, right?
Depends on who you're saying, like he's up against Harris.
Yeah.
That'd be a tough one.
No, I'm laughing because
I made myself laugh there too, because I knew I shocked him with that answer.
how insane you are. The fact that you laughed is actually crazy. Dude,
No,
that's
Parker.
I'm laughing
Listen,
because I'm literally laughing out of how fucking crazy that is.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy at all. And it's because I'm a consequentialist. So I am mindful of the idea that the value of women's right to vote might cause society to get worse. Might. I'm not saying it definitely would. So I am open to the idea of, if we said, okay, in fact, I would love to run this experiment. It would be fun. Let's give men no right to vote for 10 years. See how society goes. Let's give women no right to vote for 10 years. Let's see how society goes. And let's compare the two. And then we already know what it's like to have both voting. Now, and I think I bring this hypothetical up to him. What if by eliminating the right of women to vote, society gets better on various metrics? I think I used child poverty. Would you support the right of no right for women to vote? Yeah, it gets interesting.
Parker, listen to me. This is going to be a tough question. If you're for all outcomes, I hope, like well-being, better society, right? You're for that.
How is? Please.
I just
tell
want
me
to.
how this.
I just want to.
So
I just want to make that premise before I ask my question.
You don't know who you'd vote for if Donald Trump wanted to leave women's right to vote left up to the states.
I am saying that I am against that, but if depending on what other values that and issues and policies, it might outweigh it. But let me ask you this: if it were true that you would have a better society and outcomes, better well-being in a society if women didn't vote, would you be for women voting still?
Yes.
Why? You would end up with a worse society in this hypothetical.
Wait. So are you saying that
I'm
you would
asking you a
prefer-
question, Parker.
Yeah, I would prefer democracy over.
So you would rather?
authoritarianism.
Okay,
See,
so you would.
Did you hear his answer? I would prefer democracy over well-being. I've set up this hypothetical where your well-being goes down because women are voting. And then the question is, would you still support women voting? And he said yes, because he values democracy. And then I lead him, well, okay, what is it about democracy you value? This is a great hypothetical to really make people squirm up on dictatorship versus democracy. Which one do you prefer? Most people in the United States say democracy. Okay, but why? Well, because it leads to better outcomes and power corrupts, all blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine, I agree. But in a hypothetical where a dictator leads to better outcomes, less poverty, lower crime, higher economic growth, more jobs, higher birth rates, more hope, more happiness, whatever it is. If a dictator could accomplish those things and still be a dictator, and there's no democracy, which society would you, and let's say it's like over a 4-year time frame, which would you rather have? Democracy or dictator? I think you'd be hard pressed to go with democracy there. Because even if you say democracy, I would ask you, but why? What value does democracy have if you're getting worse outcomes, much worse outcomes than compared to a dictator? Well, power corrupts. Okay, power corrupts. It corrupts to the better in this case. Well, it wouldn't be corruption then. It's the wrong word. So this is a rhetorical trick I used on him, I admit. But I think a rational, reasonable person who's more dead inside can easily answer that. I'd go with the dictator. Because you've set up the hypothetical in such a way that you're telling me society is better under the dictator. Now you can talk about, well, what about the future? And I could frame it into 4 years. In that 4 years, society gets better. And then after the 4 years, you can now decide again. You could vote the dictator out or whatever. But people have this knee-jerk reaction against dictatorships, that they're just bad, no matter what. But you can imagine a case where a dictatorship is way superior to a democracy.
I would prefer a democracy where you still have a democracy with men voting, but my question is a very tough one. I'll ask it again because I think you didn't quite hear me.
No,
So
I did hear you, and I did respond the way that I think.
So you rather have women vote in a worse society than only men vote in a better society?
And in a logically consistent hypothetical, absolutely. Now, would you like to respond to the idea that it is the case that not
See,
only
to me, that's laughable.
Wait, no, you know what's laughable?
laughable.
The fact that you think that you would vote for someone who literally is against women's rights to vote. You understand that, right?
Yeah, but what is so great about women's rights if it leads to a bad society? That's the point of the hypothetical. Who cares about women's rights to vote if it leads to a better society for both men and women? That's the hypothetical. He's placing a value on democracy regardless of the outcome. And that's what the hypothetical is getting at.
Is there someone against women's rights to vote right now, or is this hypothetical?
You would vote for Donald Trump, even though he literally wanted to restrict women's right to vote.
How so?
By leaving it up to the states.
What are you talking about?
That's the hypothetical.
Oh, okay. You're talking about hypothetical. Yes. Okay. Yeah. You gave me a hypothetical just now. I answered. I gave you a hypothetical, and we both think each other's crazy with our answers.
I understand that you think I'm crazy, but you're the one literally saying that you're okay with women not having the right to vote.
Right. And I understand that you think I'm crazy for saying that, but
because
you're the
it
one who
creates-
said that you'd be willing to have a worse.
You said because
then
it
he
creates a
mutes
better
me.
society. You're presupposing there's a better society, particularly from like women not having the right to vote. That is a presupposition that you're coming there. If you were to accept that in application to society, or I'm not disputing that. Absolutely, I would promote.
You're right, dude. The people tend to put a symbolic value to democracy, but this is not necessarily a bad thing. Well, I agree. Like in the real world, this is not a bad thing to put. It's the same with human life. We put a value on human life, no matter what. Most people do. There's some crazies out there, but it's also painfully obvious that some humans, the world would be a better place if they did not exist. Right? So, in this hypothetical, you can imagine certain situations where democracy is worse than dictatorship. If you're a smart human being, it's very easy to admit this. If you're a person who you've kind of lived in this world that you've called Trump a fascist, you've called Trump a dictator, you've called Trump an authoritarian, you hate Trump, to concede the idea that a dictator might be better than democracy kind of ruins the foundation of all your accusations against Trump if you make that concession. So if you're like Parker, you have to defend that to the hilt. There's never a situation where dictatorship is good.
Democracy and women's right to vote, right, over like certain types of conditions like that. Yes. That is something that I view as like morally valuable, that women have the right to vote.
Why do you view democracy?
You see it as morally valuable that women have the right to vote.
Yes, I do. And I already conceded that I wouldn't want women to lose the right to vote. But
okay, so given that it is the case that Donald Trump was against women's right to vote, right, wanted to restrict it and leave it up to the states, tell me what about Kamala Harris today?
well, hang on, how do you know that?
Policy and about who she is as a person is worse than Donald Trump.
He confused me here. Is he talking hypothetically? Did Donald Trump ever want women to stop voting and leave that to the states to decide? Did I miss that?
Yeah.
Or is he just talking hypothetically?
Can you show me where Donald Trump said that he was trying to limit women's right to vote?
See, I'm giving a hypothetical to be able to show you that.
Okay, so you're not saying that he actually did that.
Obviously. So I'm saying that there's not going to be a distinction that you can derive between a woman's right to vote and a woman's right to get access to an abortion in the first trimester, given that you believe in that. If it is the case that you're going to say that you wouldn't vote for him in the context of like him wanting to leave women's right to vote up to the states. So it's about questioning you in that context and being like, okay, what's the difference between these to say that you'd support him in one scenario but not the other? Does that make sense to you?
That analogy, I can see where it sort of makes sense, but I would say that there is a big difference between letting the states decide. I don't think the right to bodily autonomy is nearly the same as the right to vote. And the Supreme Court ruling did not.
I have a great question for you, actually. Would you
hang on? You've been asking all the questions in the last 5 minutes.
I'm sorry. I have to answer this. I have to ask this because I don't want to lose it.
Okay.
If it were
like
going to be the
almost on
case that
Ritalin or
restricting
something.
men's right to vote, right, provided better outcomes, would you support restricting men's right to vote?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we should restrict men's right to
In
vote.
other words, what I'm saying is
literally unironically, this guy is just going to argue, right? If we actually like look at reality and the way it is, that we should have restricted men's right to vote because they.
You see what he's doing here? He's gave me a hypothetical. If society got better by restricting men's right to vote, would you be okay with men not voting? I said yes. Answered just like that. So that means you don't want men to vote? What?
They literally voted for Donald Trump, who actively tried to undermine our democracy, our rule of law, our constitution, who was held civilly liable of sexually abusing a woman,
Listen
who
to
bragged
this
about walking in
verbal
the changing
diarrhea,
rooms of
just-
girls misuse it because he quote-unquote owns the place to inspect them without their consent. Literally, he cuts taxes predominantly for rich people at the expense of people who are in the middle.
He's talking about we're talking about democracy and dictatorship and the right to vote. And then he's
to
talking
inspect
about
them without
taxing
their
the
consent.
rich.
Literally, he cuts taxes predominantly for rich people at the expense of people who are in the middle class because tariffs regressively impact.
This is why it's so difficult to have conversations with people like this. It's like you almost need to give them Valium to relax. Just take a breath, man. I don't know if this is real or not, but it's almost like his dislike for Trump is to such a degree that he can't. He just, I know his problem. His problem is he cares too much. Pretend you don't care. You don't give a crap about this stuff, and just relax and just have a conversation. But now he's in verbal diarrhea mode. And when he's hosting and I'm the guest, you just got to let him have his diarrhea moment.
Individuals. So that's what you just did.
Muted again? Okay.
Yeah. You are.
Parker, I have been pretty civil here, right? I'm just wondering why you keep muting me.
If you think it's civil to dispute or to literally say that you would vote for Donald Trump, even if it is the case that he would restrict women's right to vote, well then you can say that. Also, you're not responding to the point. Would you in that scenario?
It's my turn to ask a question.
No, because you didn't answer my question. Would you support? You did support getting rid of men's right to vote, then, right?
In that hypothetical, yes. And I can tell you why, but I would love to ask you a question, and I could show you and I are not that.
I don't think he's had a guy on like me on before. He's looking to the side. Oh, he just conceded it with no problem.
That much different. Parker, please. And again, I'm not here to make you look bad or anything. Let's just have a normal conversation. Is that okay?
I think I'm having a normal conversation, and I think that you saying that to me is trying to get the audience. You're trying to get the audience to believe that I'm somehow a bad faith actor here.
Well, you're
get the audience. He's worried about the audience. I didn't even see his live stream chat. I'm just talking to him like we're one-on-one. But he's so cognizant of how the audience perceives the conversation. Who gives a crap what the audience thinks? Let's just talk.
You're talking really fast. You're trying to get as many words in as you can.
That's just how I speak. That's how
Okay,
I speak. I'm sorry.
Can I ask a favor of you?
I'm sorry, Pine. That's how I speak. And if you think that it's me intentionally trying to do something to quote unquote win or something, you're just
no. I don't think he's intentionally trying to do it. I think his emotions are so high he can't help himself. Just to blurb out diarrhea, verbal diarrhea.
completely mistaken. You just have not watched my live.
Okay, I'm mistaken then. But let me ask you a question. Why do you value democracy?
Because I think that people should have a say in the government
Why?
or the authority over them.
Okay, and why do you believe that's good?
That's going to be an intuition. That's based off an intuition. I believe morals are subjective. That's going to be
Okay,
based on.
and this is where it kind of just shut down, I think, in a way, because I believe people should have the right to vote for people over them. I ask why, and he says it's my intuition. Where do you go from there? I think I don't remember where I went from here, but I think and we'll find out. I think I said, what if someone's intuition is that some people know what's best for you more than you yourself? That's a great hypothetical question. You can think of clear examples. Kids don't know what's best for them. Most of the time, parents know what's best for their kids. So there's one example where an authoritarian, a dictator in the home, is better for society than the kids dictating, in quotes, their future.
On one of my subjective values.
Okay, but why do you think you have that intuition?
I don't know.
You just do, don't
See,
you?
most people, when I ask that type of question, they would say something like, well, I think
Michael Smith says, PineCreek, wait, you do believe in democracy though, right? Yes, I do, Michael Smith. I think democracy is the worst form of government, but better than everything else. People hate it when I say it that way, but it's true.
Power corrupts. Dictators are bad. And so therefore, people should have
but what you're asking is a fundamental question. You're asking like, you would ask me again, oh, but why do you value that? Then you're going to keep asking me, why do you value that?
Right, I'm trying to get to the core.
I understand. It infinitely regresses to an intuition. That's what I was describing to you. That's it.
Okay, but my intuition is that if your outcomes are better, and let's say you and I agree to outcomes. Let's say it's something like, I don't know, less people dying of hunger, and everything else all else is equal. Let's say a dictatorship leads to less people dying of hunger versus a democracy leads to more people dying of hunger, but everything else is we've controlled for everything else. You would still want a democracy?
If you've controlled for everything else?
Yeah.
Like then in that circumstance, I think it would make sense. Like I'm not saying that like
you finally see, this is where he broke down. He finally had to succumb to the hypothetical. He didn't come out and say that a dictatorship would be better, but he said this.
Like then in that circumstance, I think it would make sense. Like I'm not
in that
saying
circumstance, then it would make sense to have a dictatorship over a democracy. I view this as progress because I got him to think. Think about his intuitions, think about his goals, and if everything else is the same, and we lower child poverty by having a dictator, everything else is the same compared to democracy, which one would you prefer? If you're a rational person who's more dead inside, you don't care how it looks, you don't care how people perceive you, you don't care about anything, then you would say, I prefer a dictator in this hypothetical. Because it's a rhetorical question. Anybody who basically says, no, I'd rather see more children die and have a democracy because I've controlled for everything else, all else equal. At that point, you're just trying to save face for saving face sake.
that like in all
Would it make sense?
I'm not saying in all situations I would support democracy over that. Like if you could provide me a circumstance like that, then sure. But I think that
that's what I said.
That's not what you said though. You just said quote unquote better outcomes, right? And
right.
It is the case that you restrict only women's right to vote.
But that's the point I was making, that you just can't say, I love democracy for democracy's sake.
I never said principally I support democracy in every single circumstance. All right, I've been very explicit. I still say this today, that it is the case that there are some things that you do not want democracy on. Like you don't want people to vote on whether or not they think slavery should be allowed. That shouldn't be allowed, period. Right? Human rights should be federally protected. That's my view. So of course there are certain things that I don't support democracy in, but like I also think that you're restricting rights when you're limiting just women's rights.
Okay, yeah. If memory serves, now we're going to focus in on rights, which as a naturalist I find fun. I should have told him I was a naturalist at this point, because I still think in his head he thinks I worship Jesus or something. And so he has maybe a negative attitude towards me. But maybe he doesn't. Maybe he knows me. I don't know.
Come from?
They're going to be, again, based upon our fucking intuitions and how we think that people should be entitled to have
right.
certain things
So,
in society.
Okay, Parker, we kind of got off immigration, but this is fun. I like this topic. And again, I appreciate you because you're a smart guy, and unlike some other, you probably get a lot of dumb people calling in here, right?
A lot of people think that's you. I'm just going to be totally honest with you.
Yeah, I don't buy that. Like, I don't care if people think I'm dumb or not, but anybody who's watching, who's a Parkergetajob supporter and just even really hates Trump, they can disagree with me, but I think it's only an idiot would say I'm dumb. They might say I'm wrong, but they wouldn't say I'm dumb. Like, you should listen to the caller that was prior to me. That's dumb.
Well, that's because as soon as someone associates, like I voted for Trump.
I did butter him up there, but I was being sincere. I do view him as a smart guy. And I have no ill will towards him.
So for a lot of people, they don't even think. They just have a knee-jerk reaction. Well, then you're a bad person, or you're wrong, or whatever. That's just a knee-jerk reaction, and it goes the other direction too. If a conservative hears a person say, "I'm a woke progressive," they just have a knee-jerk reaction against them. That's just the
you're
way.
assuming that everyone in my chat responds that way. There are plenty of people that say that they voted for Donald Trump, and then the chat has significantly more sympathy for them in terms of them actually engaging with these topics, learning things like that. Right? That doesn't exist here.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about abortion still, or do you want to move on? Because I got questions on abortion for you.
I'll answer anything.
Okay. Do you think, hypothetically, a woman should have the right to bodily autonomy at the, let's say, 7-month stage? Let's say.
So bodily autonomy in that circumstance would be just an induction of labor. After viability, you just cause birth early.
See, I try to put myself in the opponent's shoes. Okay, he's asking me this question. What does he really mean here? What he really means is, do I believe that a woman has the right to kill a baby in the womb? He doesn't mean give birth to it. This is what he's really asking. So I had to explain this to him.
No, let's say the mother wants to kill it, not induce birth.
So either
Kill it
way,
inside the womb.
So to clarify, either way, you're going to give birth to it. You just want to kill it on top of giving birth to it.
Right. Do you think a woman has the right to kill within?
I think in that circumstance it'd be wrong, because at that point,
okay, we're agreed.
Right, it is the case that you can literally give birth to it.
It's very clear that people know what he's really saying here. He's saying that at the 7-month stage, we didn't get into so many details about the hypothetical, but at the 7-month stage, a woman does not have a bodily autonomy. He's saying it's wrong. A woman should not have the bodily autonomy to terminate a pregnancy at the 7-month stage. That's what he's really saying here. And I congratulate him for saying this. So a woman says, I want to kill my baby at 7 months. Is your life in danger? No. Is the baby's life in danger? No. I just don't want it. Society and him especially, has said, no, that shouldn't happen. We say to the woman who wants her bodily autonomy, I'll give you the middle finger. You can't do it. You don't have the right to do it. That's what he's really saying. And I asked that question to appeal to his progressive audience, to hear him say that in some situations we give the middle finger to a woman's right of autonomy, in some situations, and that's okay.
But it's viable.
Okay,
you have to give birth to it either way.
Okay, but let's be clear. I agree with you, by the way, and
But it's sentience. I value sentience.
Right.
You're saying before that you consider it to not be valuable, so then it should be legal.
But I just want to point out what you did there. You are saying that society and you personally, well, definitely you personally, would say that a woman does.
I'm going to go pee. I'll be back. This is almost done, I think. Maybe 5 more minutes, and then I'll take calls.
Not have the right to her bodily autonomy at 7 months if she wants to kill it in the womb. She does not have that right.
In the same way that you don't have bodily autonomy to like murder people, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
okay. We're agreed.
So again, bodily autonomy is not principled, right? But I do think people should have bodily autonomy, right, over their bodies in circumstances like where there's a non-sentient embryo. There's no reason to restrict their bodily autonomy, right?
Yeah, we're agreed. We agreed on this one. So let's move on.
When you put someone
something
in prison,
we disagree about,
you're technically restricting someone's bodily autonomy. It's a clarification point.
And
let me thank some people real quick.
Yeah,
Sabrina, thank you so much for the 28 Canadian dollars. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, apparently there is definitely an election in Canada coming up here pretty soon. Everyone do make sure to go out. I actually don't know the conditions of the election. I don't know what it's leaning towards and what's going on there. But I'd have to see. And whatnot. So, Najia, thank you for the $5. Jocelyn, thank you for the $1. And then Jace with the $50 on Venmo. Thank you so much, Jace. I really appreciate it. Give the W's for Jace in the comment section for keep up the good work. I love the knowledge sharing and positivity you constantly have. I want to continue to spread joy and knowledge and logic like you do. Thank you so much, Jace. I really appreciate it. Give the fucking W's for Jace in the comment section right now. That's so incredibly kind of you. So incredibly kind of you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to tie in this whole idea of democracy and rights and so forth with this abortion issue. So if, let's say, through democratic processes, the vast, vast, vast majority of people in the United States say that all abortion is wrong, illegal. You support democracy in that sense, in that
No, restricting
situation?
human rights. Restricting human rights.
No, I am talking about human rights. Human rights come from humans, yes? And the
Wait,
humans have decided
restate the question. Did I misinterpret what you said? Restate it.
human rights come from humans. Are we agreed so far?
I didn't ask. I was asking like the hypothetical question.
I know, I'm setting the premise for the question. So if human
didn't
rights
ask
come
the
from
question.
humans and humans actually have decided through the democratic process that no women should have the right to an abortion at any stage, would you support that democratic decision or process?
No,
Why?
because I think that human rights over democracy.
Okay, where do human rights come from?
We're back to this.
I already told you this answer. It's a prescription of one of my subjective values.
Yeah, that's where do human rights come from? It comes from humans who each individually have moral intuitions. Okay, fine.
So it comes from you?
Yes.
Okay, but what if
Are you
Everybody-
are you talking about legally recognized rights?
Yes,
or are
I
you
was talking
talking
more
about
legally.
moral rights as prescribed by me?
legally, not moral?
Legally comes from the government.
Okay, so if the democratic process said that no woman has the right to an abortion, you would support that?
Legally,
No,
Legally.
that process.
No.
Why not? It's
Because
democratic
it's
process.
because I believe there's a moral right.
Okay, and if everybody's
My
moral-
moral
Yeah, I
right
was-
would disagree with what's.
I wasn't clear with that question. The question was really, do you support that process that people get to vote to say that women don't have the right to this? Now you can disagree with it morally, but do you support that process? And I think he's forced to say yes.
What's legally recognized currently.
Okay, but I guess if you just are saying it's a moral right, then we just say, you want to ask me now? Sure, go ahead.
Absolutely. Right? You think that rights are based upon conception or sentience?
Sentience.
I would say neither.
Mm.
It's based on the will of the people.
Oh, what are we talking about?
If the will of the people say that it should be after birth, would you be okay with that?
No, I would not. That would be a moral thing, but you're talking about legally. Legally, it would be if.
This is not super water. It's it kind of looks like it's radioactive, but it's because the mug is green.
You're asking
you.
asking
I'm asking
morally or
you.
legally?
I'm asking you morally when.
If morally, no. Legally, yes.
Yeah, see, it's just confusion on the moral question versus legal question. How much
So
longer did that
abortion,
go?
you'd be voting for Kamala Harris, not for Donald Trump.
Yeah, my position.
I want to get to the end. Where's the end?
Okay, what are the reasons why you voted Donald Trump? Why are you asking me about abortion if it's not relevant to your vote?
Because
for
you
Donald
brought
Trump?
abortion up about 15, 20 minutes ago. We were talking about immigration.
Remember, I said, here's the first time abortion was brought up. It was by him.
Of women's right to vote to women's right. I'm asking you your position. I'm not asking society.
I want to get to the part about him not willing to be friends with people who disagree with him.
Not as directly.
It is totally directly.
How?
What are you talking about? Well, who you vote for determines whether
Reasons too.
you didn't. I asked.
The correct answer is the Biden administration.
Oh boy, we went on
Do you
way
just-
longer than I thought.
Disagree with that?
Yes, and I gave you the reason why. Would you like to explain why you disagree with that?
Yeah, you can actually look up the debt levels prior to Trump entering. You can look at the debt levels prior to Biden entering. Now, I'm not talking about laws passed. I'm just talking about something very, very simple. What was the debt? What was the debt level on this
Oh, yeah.
date? What was the debt level when Trump exited?
I totally get that.
Uh-oh. Okay. I thought I
I've
lost
responded to that multiple
control
times,
here.
and
It's lagging a bit. I got him to admit that Biden increased the debt levels more than Trump.
Animal going on other people's shows because when people come on my show, like I'm in control.
Here we go.
I can boot them, I can mute them.
Now we're close to
But when I come on your show, I have to walk a little bit on eggshells because I know you're the authoritarian here. And so
Oh, what happened? Now it's buffering. Okay, I guess I'll open up the room here. Let's get rid of that, get rid of that. What did the stock market do today? Nothing. Flat. I want the stock market to go down. Okay, click on the link, whatever your name was. You said you wanted to come in and talk about abortion. Why even argue with liberals? Good question.
I have to be careful what I
Hang on.
say.
Stop buffering. Steven, can you hear me? I cannot hear you. Gearbox, top right. Make sure your input mic is correct. Yeah, just a second. See it. I see that comment. He's going to refresh. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Are you the guy who want to talk about abortion, or you want to talk about something else?
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about abortion and maybe even immigration if you want.
Okay. Are you the Italian dude that I have troubles understanding?
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah, okay. Speak
Maybe
slowly.
there's less trouble this time. Yeah, sorry.
Slowly and clearly into your mic.
Yeah, sure. I'm actually with my phone. Did you lose the background? What happened?
Yeah, I don't like the background anymore, so I got rid of it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I just wanted to know what's your position on abortion, I guess.
I said it with this Parker guy. I view abortion like speeding. So speeding can be really, 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 really bad if you go super fast in a slow zone, especially with people around. You can kill people. But if you go 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, that's not bad at all. But it's still technically illegal. I view abortion the same way. In vitro fertilization, if you throw embryos down the sink, is it bad? Sure, you can call it bad, but it's not that bad. I mean, the embryos still have value, so you're wasting something of value, so it's bad in that sense, but it's not bad. 20-week stage, I think, is a good 20 to 24, 26 is a good cutoff for saying where it starts to get really bad. It would be akin to at what point do police officers start pulling people over for speeding? Usually it's 10 miles an hour over the limit on the interstate. So that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think I agree. But I also think that on the legality part, I think that it's a bad idea for the government to get involved with this thing.
Is it a bad idea for the government to get involved with murder? No.
Mm-hmm. But I think this is a bit harder. So say that a pregnant woman who is like 8 months old, I don't know, wants to drink beer. Should the government stop her to drink beer?
Well, it'd be very tough to enforce something like that. But I think if a woman is drinking beer in a restaurant, I think the government has the authority potentially to fine the restaurant for serving a pregnant woman alcohol. And if a person in a restaurant could report her, and she could be fined.
Mm. Okay, so you want the government to strictly control what an adult can drink?
In this situation, yes. Yeah. Strictly, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a libertarian.
But then I can just... Okay, yeah, I'm thinking that I can just, start tweaking the hypothetical, and then I'm going to get you to agree that the government can really be intrusive in your life, right? So, for example, the government can tell you what pills you should take, can stop you from smoking, and then I'm just going to draw a line and say, okay, no, the government cannot do these things.
You're talking about a democratically elected government, right?
Any government, even if it's not democratic, you should not.
If dictatorship is different, because you could strongly, all the people could strongly disagree with what the dictator is doing. But in a democratic run government, let's say Donald Trump ran for eliminating smoking. It's illegal to smoke cigarettes. And if you smoke a cigarette, you can be put in jail or fined or both. and he wins in a landslide, and the exit poll says this was the number one issue for all the voters: get rid of smoking cigarettes, and he wins, and so he enacts a law, gets Congress to enact a law. What's wrong with that?
Okay, so what is wrong is that generally speaking, it's better if the government does not exercise too much power in the personal life of people. And
I tend to agree with that, but I'm making a very broad point that in a democratically run government system, that society votes people in who makes the rules, and if it is what it is.
Yeah, but I think we're talking a bit past each other, because I'm saying this would have negative consequences, and you're saying this should be legal. And I agree, if the government makes a law, it's going to be legal. But I'm saying it shouldn't be legal, and here are the reasons why.
Okay, fine. What you want to talk about immigration now?
Oh yeah, sure. I have a bit of a hot take. I think actually we should have open borders.
Okay, why?
I think there are various estimates that the world GDP will grow a lot if we had open borders. I think a lot of states spend like a lot of money on border patrol and these kind of things, and it's not really effective, and it's not clear to me that it's good overall. Like, imagine that, I don't know, say that you want border patrol because you don't want criminals. Maybe that money will be spent much better if you invest in the police or something.
Do you think, do you live in a house or apartment?
Apartment.
Do you think anybody should be allowed in your apartment?
No.
Why not?
Because it's, I mean, that's the point of me renting the apartment, that I've got exclusive use. But I think the point that you're trying to get is that there are people you don't want to have in, and you're going to think about immigrants that you don't want in, like serial killers, I suppose.
Well, I asked you, you're for open borders, but not open apartments.
Yeah, that's right.
And I asked why, and it's because you want the apartment to yourself?
Yeah, precisely.
Why do you want the apartment to yourself? Why can't you share?
The apartment.
Yeah.
Because it would be better for me to have an apartment for my own.
Could it be better for a country to at least limit its immigration policy?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that it will not be better, actually.
Okay, so your answer is no. So it's good to limit the number of people in your apartment, but not good to limit the number of people in a country.
Yeah, I think there is a difference.
Okay. What if it's a small country like the Netherlands? And let's say would you be okay with open borders and 10 million people entering the Netherlands?
Okay, you said two different things, right? You said, would you be okay with open border? And would you be okay with 10 million people entering Netherlands?
Well, open border means potentially 10 million people could enter a country, right? Because it's open.
Yeah, but I'm going to say this is extremely unlikely, right? So
okay, it's in the extremely unlikely case of 10 million people entering the Netherlands. Would you be okay with that if they have an open border policy?
I think it would be bad if 10 million people move to Netherlands.
I thought open borders was good.
Yeah, it is good.
But in this case, it's bad?
Saying, in that specific hypothetical that you made up, yeah, sure.
Okay, so in some hypotheticals, open borders are bad.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so that's one where you're entering too many people in a small country. How about one where you're bringing in, let's say, a hypothetical where 9 out of 10 people are serial rapists. 90% of people you let in that are coming in are serial rapists. It's an unlikely hypothetical, admit it. But would you be for open borders then?
So in that situation, I would also be against open borders.
Oh, you'd be against. How about 10% serial rapists coming in?
Serial rapists, did you say?
10%. 1 out of every 10 of the open border policy, 1 out of 10 people is a serial rapist.
I don't know. What are we trying to reach a perfect number? I'm still going to say no, but
Right. So how many serial rapists are you okay with?
1.5. Yeah,
1 in what?
1.5. No, but I'm joking because
Okay.
clearly I'm not
See,
going to
I
be
think
able
I've
to give you a
accomplished
specific
my
number.
goal here with you to show that open borders, potentially at least, can be a very, very bad idea. And I think you just admitted that
No,
with
I
these
agree that
hypotheticals.
potentially there are a lot of risks, but I'm saying that in the real actual world, rather than the hypothetical world, this is going to lead to an improvement of everyone's life.
It's not hypothetical that thousands of criminals, really bad ones, murderers, have entered the country over the last 4 years. That's not a
No,
hypothetical.
I agree. In the US, sure. But I also think that if you look at the aggregated data, overall, it's a good thing. And I also think that when you try to stop people from entering, you have to stop every single person. You have to spend a lot of money on border patrol. Just let the people in, put that money in the police. It's going to be more effective.
Okay, I'll give you the last word. Thanks for calling in. Michael. Whoa. Hi, Michael. Can I show your face, Michael? This guy's going to be interesting. I got to show you guys this guy. If you look up the word cool in the dictionary, it's this guy. I can't hear you. You got to unmute yourself. I can't hear you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. I can't hear you. I gotta show you guys this. He looks angry though. You look insane, Michael. I think he's swearing at me, but he's muted. I'm not muting you. If you can hear me, you got to go to the gearbox in the top right and make sure your mic is set. And if you have a beer in the fridge, I suggest you go drink it. See the gearbox, like the little flower thing on the top right? You know I can't hear you, so you're talking to yourself right now. Like the hat, though. All black, got the chains over the t-shirt. You're playing the part. And the shaded glasses. Try refreshing. After you set your mic, refresh. You know what refresh means? It's, you got to, you know, the little arrow on the left side? You'll leave and you'll immediately come back. I want to talk to you. You seem like a fun guy, but I can't hear you. So, okay, don't freak out on me. But you gonna refresh? Okay, I thought I saw. I can lip read. Refresh. After there you go. This is gonna be fun. I got to be careful with this guy though. He's the guy in the chat that says, talk to me about some real shit. Come on, Michael. You can do it. I know you're old, Michael, but you can do this. I was going to say, I know you're stupid, but you can do this, but that would be rude. I guess anybody else can call. Oh, he's back. Okay, let's see. No, it still can't hear you. Participants want a hybrid meeting. No, maybe later. I don't know either. I don't know. What's wrong with you? Well, I don't know. Try typing. I don't know either. It's not my fault you can't figure this out. You love me? You're saying you love me and you agree with everything I talk about? Okay. Well, then why are you calling in if you love me? I understand what you're saying. You agree with me on immigration. You agree with me on abortion. You agree with me on everything. Yeah, what? You voted for Trump? You even agree with me there? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, you're not muted on my end. See, in order for me to mute you, okay, yeah, you think I'm wonderful. And you've been watching me for 4 years, you said? Yeah. And you support the show? I get it. You're a big fan. It's fun having you, not being able to hear you. I'm sure you're a great guy, Michael, but I don't know what to tell you. If you don't have your mic set properly, do you have anything else running in the background, maybe? You got anything else that might be used? You can hear me, right? Put your thumb up if you can hear me. Okay. Make sure, close everything off other than this tab. Close the YouTube thing off. Close everything off but this tab. And then try to come in again. This might be worth waiting for. Close everything off. Make sure your mic is set to the proper mic with the gearbox on the top right. Then leave and come back in. Close all your tabs. My guess is you have another application open that's using your mic. And therefore, oh, see, epiphany, you know, oh, PineCreek's right. I have something else open. Yeah. He's, oh, that old geezer at PineCreek, he's tech savvy. Yeah, you're probably on another thing, doing another thing with your mic. Maybe you're even live streaming. Yeah. When in doubt, reboot your whole computer. I love talking to tech savvy guys. Oh, you got a problem? Reboot. Hard reboot. Just go to the wall. This is perfect computer advice. If you're having problems with your computer, go to the wall where your computer's plugged in and just unplug it. And then plug it back in immediately. That's all you have to do. This shut down business and restart. That's for amateurs. Professionals, they just pull the plug. No, still not working. I just had a caller and it worked for him. So the issue is you. You're the loser, Michael. Not me. But I don't even know why you're calling in, because it seems like you agree with everything I say. I know you agree with everything I say. So why are you calling in? Are you live streaming somewhere else? Are you live streaming somewhere else? No? Did you turn everything off? Oh, that's a beautiful scar. You wanna know how I got these scars? Are you the Joker? Are you blind in one eye? What's wrong with your eye? You got pink eye? Yeah. You work as a teacher at an elementary school and you got pink eye. How did a school hire a guy that looks like you to teach elementary school kids? I mean, shouldn't you be on some type of list? Yeah, keep the glasses on. You look better with the glasses on. What are you drinking there? Bed ice? Milwaukee Brew. Okay. Well, I got to let you go, Michael. It's been fun just looking at you. I know. I don't know what to do. Yeah, I mean, I can't help it if you're stupid. Yeah, I hear you, but I got another caller. That was fun. Oh, it's you again. Mr. Stock Market dropping, I'm complaining, whiner type of guy.
Well, it's been kind of flat. I mean,
You're quiet. Hang on, let me boost you up.
testing 1, 2, 3. Testing.
Yeah, that's a little bit better. I can bump you up.
Testing. Okay.
What did you want to talk about today?
I don't know. This topic of abortion came up. I really like T-Jump's view on abortion.
What's his view?
I mean, you're a slave to biology. Or consent to sex is not consent to abortion, pregnancy.
Oh, he has that view?
It does, and I really like it.
That's like saying consent to that when you go out in the rain, you haven't consented to get wet. When you go out in the rain, there is consent to get wet.
No, there is no, not necessarily.
Even your umbrella will get wet, and some
Sure.
of it will go on your shoes. So
Sure. And
a reasonable person would say every time you have sex, there is even if you're using contraception, there's a chance you might get pregnant, and you should remember that probability. Let's say it's only 1%, and then take responsibility for your actions. That if you do get pregnant with that 1% chance, that's on you.
Sure. Oh, okay, but it's like almost like saying, all right, a smoker. It's like you smoke, you get cancer, and now it's like me telling you, nope, you can't go see a doctor about your cancer. You got to take responsibility for your cancer.
That's nowhere the same. But if there's no doctors around and you get cancer from smoking, and then you whine about there not being doctors around, you should have known that. Should have known, hey, maybe I shouldn't smoke because there's no doctors around.
Okay, I don't know that, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with like the immorality of it. I guess we're talking about the morality. I mean, like, I don't know what the fact that there are doctors and not doctors. You still didn't consent. You're still. I think it's still moral to treat the cancer to try to treat it. Just in the same way, I think it's moral that if you get pregnant and the woman didn't want to get pregnant, I think it's moral to try to treat it.
I don't disagree with abortion before 20 weeks. I would say it's bad, but not that bad.
Yeah, I guess you could just bite the bullet and just say, yeah, I guess it's not.
See, atheists and Christians or theists, they both hate me when I give that type of answer, because atheists want me to say, oh, right to choice, woman's bodily autonomy, you like feel sorry for women thing, like it's not, the pregnancy was thrusted upon her unexpectedly. She didn't choose to be pregnant. I say rubbish. Every time you have sex, you've taken on the responsibility that there's a chance you'll get pregnant, even if you're using contraception. And you need to own that responsibility. And then you look at the laws of your state or whatever, and if, there's no, you want an abortion, there's no abortion doctor. You should have thought of that before you had sex. Because 1% chance that you could get pregnant, or even 0.5%, whatever it is.
Right. Okay. I mean, fair.
And there's other ways to have sex other than, vaginally.
Sure. But I think, I guess, okay. Yeah. I guess I treat the abortion the same as, any other. It's nature that I think we're like a slave to nature, and we're always trying to find ways to work around nature or oppose nature. And I think abortion is just one of those ways. And I think it's
See, this is the Catholic coming out of you. Oh no, you're Muslim. This is the Muslim Islam coming out of you now.
Trying to go. Is it?
By the way, you could pass for a Hispanic Catholic.
Oh yeah. No, I know. I've been. Yeah. Everybody speaks Spanish to me.
So if you ever have problems, wait till Democrats win the election. Like if you ever have immigration problems, you just pretend you're a Mexican and cross on the southern border. You'll get in, no problem.
So what are your thoughts on, I guess, Trump not really following the Supreme Court order to facilitate the return of that deported?
Okay, that's incredibly stupid, and here's why. What the Supreme Court said is, did they use the word facilitate?
Yeah, they use that word.
Yeah. All that means is that they shouldn't prevent his return if El Salvador wants to return.
Right. I remember
But El Salvador, the president, says we have no intention of returning him. So it's case closed.
Yeah, I heard somebody Trump's administration was like, we'll send the plane if he wants, if he'll get on it. But I guess they're facilitating. We'll send the plane, but like,
I could be a Democrat for a few minutes here and can say Trump did a horrible mistake. He actually went against the withholding order from 2019. A judge ruled that if he returned to El Salvador, he'd be persecuted. His life was in danger. So I'm going to put a withholding order. And the Trump administration totally went against that, because that withholding order, the only way to remove it is through legal judicial process. And the Trump administration did do that. They're bad people, the Trump administration. They should not have done it. They screwed up. Now, but here's the problem. The problem is, the Trump administration, if I were them, I would come out and say, hey, we screwed up. We'd love to have him back. But it's out of our hands. You want us to invade El Salvador and kidnap this guy? No, surely you don't want us to go against the ruling authority of a sovereign country, do you? It's in a way, now, you strip all morals aside. This was a very clever move by the Trump administration, because my guess is they called the El Salvador president and said, hey, you're not going to return this guy, right? If we bring him? No, we'll keep him. Don't worry. He's a El Salvador citizen. We'll keep him. Don't worry. Okay, we're going to do this even though we're breaking the law. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. We can just say. And so this is, the cynical side of me coming out. And the bottom line is, he was subject to deportation, just not to El Salvador. He came into the country illegally in 2011. This Kilmar Garcia fella, father of how many kids? Poor guy. I mean, productive member of society being kicked out of the country like this. But he came into the country illegally in 2011.
Right.
Under the current laws, he's subject to deportation.
But he had protected status or something.
Yes, he's protected from going back to El Salvador. And this was the point that this Stephen Miller guy made yesterday in front of the news media. What would happen if the El Salvadoran president changed his mind and said, you know what, we're going to return Kilmar Garcia to the United States. Okay, he comes back. Trump obeys the order, the Supreme Court order, and says, we're not going to hinder him coming back. He comes back. Guess what happens? They put him in cuffs. They put him in confinement. Why? Because he's still an illegal immigrant. From 2011, a judge, immigration judge, ruled him as undocumented, entering illegally. An immigration judge ruled that. So all the rules say that you can deport him, just not to El Salvador. So let's give him to Somalia if they'll take him. And what they do with him, that's up to them. And that's all legal, above board, but it would just make the left-wing bleeding hearts cry.
Yeah, I don't know much about this, like protected stat. I don't know. He was here for. I heard he was here for 15 years.
Yeah, there's some people who've been here for like 40 years illegally.
Right. I mean, okay, he was on protected status. I don't know if there's evidence of the whole gang member foreign terrorist stuff.
There is.
Is there? Okay.
Yep. There's a government informant, and in 20, I actually looked. I know a lot about. I'm an expert on this topic, by the way.
I know.
This is a Joe Rogan, Douglas Murray shout out. I'm an expert on this, so I'm allowed to talk about this. Okay, and I know you're not an expert, so I just want you to listen. Shut up and listen. Okay. So as an expert, in 2011, he was declared undocumented illegal immigrant to this country, subject by law for deportation. In 2019, a judge said that he cannot, withholding order, cannot go back to El Salvador, but he had a bond hearing. And in the bond hearing, there was evidence presented that an informant said that he was a member of the M13 gang. Is it 13?
MS-13.
Yeah, as an expert, I should know this. But even experts are fallible at times, so you got to give me some grace. And so his bond was denied based on that evidence, the informant's evidence that he was indeed a gang member. But he was not declared a gang member in a jury or in a official court ruling, but his bond was denied on that basis. So that is evidence. You might say it's bad evidence to conclude that he was indeed a gang member, but it is evidence that supports that he maybe was and probably was. Because his bond, because the judge said, I'm not going to give this guy bond because we got evidence that he's a gang member. So all you bleeding heart, left wing, granola crunching, sandal wearing, tree hugging people out there who feel sorry for this poor guy, there's evidence that he's not Mr. Clean. And again, he came to this country illegally. By law, he can be deported. Not to El Salvador yet, but he's there now. He's not going to be brought back.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think the really underlying issue is I don't know if like it was I think it was mistaken. I don't think they meant to send him or something like that. Or I don't know. I kept hearing he was like mistakenly sent to El Salvador. I don't know what mistake or whose mistake it was, but the issue, I think, underlying issue is like there was no real due process. He went to El Salvador, and the Supreme Court 9-0 saying you have to facilitate his return. And I think your facilitate then he's defining, and I think it will be defined in the future. But I think the real issue here is Trump ignoring. He could ask the El Salvadoran president, "Hey, I want." Well,
if it's a mistake, then that means it is a mistake, and that wasn't consciously done on purpose to take this guy and remove him. That was an honest mistake that the Trump administration made. But of course, some people hate Trump so much. There's no such thing as honest mistakes. There's only evil mistakes or evil motives. But either way, this is now a moot issue. The bottom line is this guy will never, ever return because he's going to be in El Salvadoran prison for the rest of his life, probably.
The bigger issue is ignoring the court order, I think.
Yeah, but you can just say it's a mistake, and what's going to happen? Nothing.
Trump can facilitate his return. Trump can get him back.
Not if the El Salvadoran president says he's not going to send him. You want to go to war with a small little country over this guy?
Trump? No, I think if Trump asked Bukele, we're like, hey, we want him back. But
Why would we ask him for him back?
Because the court ordered to facilitate his return. The Supreme Court.
Right, but the mistake has already been made. Why make another mistake by bringing him back?
That's not our.
He was an illegal immigrant, subject to deportation. Yes, it was a mistake to send him El Salvador, but why make a second mistake and bring him back?
I think because it's not that. No, that's fixing our mistake and going through due process to like deport him or whatever.
Okay, so what you're proposing is we fix our mistake by bringing him back and then deport him somewhere else?
No, we go through the process, figure out, why
he's here illegally. 2011, an immigration judge ruled he's here illegally. He is subject to deportation. You want to follow the law, right? We need to deport him.
Right. I just don't. We need to. There must have been a reason why he wasn't deported.
Oh, because of the feel sorry for ism of the Obama administration and the Biden administration, and maybe we didn't find him. We didn't catch him during the 4 years Trump was president.
Okay, I don't know if that's the case. I mean,
But let me put my Democrat hat on.
Yeah.
Doug, the same thing could happen to you, Doug. What if the Trump administration comes to your house one night and says you're a member of a gang or you're a really bad guy and deports you back to Canada? Wouldn't you want due process, Doug? You trust the Trump administration to correctly make the right decision in your case? Because it's an injustice and yet you're powerless to do anything about it, Doug. See, that's what a smart Democrat would say to me. Okay. But it's a type. But then, put my Republican hat back on. But this is the type of fear mongering. I didn't come into this country illegally. Kilmar Garcia did. Mm-hmm. I got paperwork, a ton of it, to prove I'm a U.S. citizen now. Kilmar Garcia doesn't. He's not a citizen of the United States.
True. Yeah.
I have never committed a felony. But hang on, I gotta be careful with this one. Again, never mind. I don't think it's been proven that he has either, but there is suspicion.
Well, that's a big thing. It's like suspicion that.
Yeah, but let's say he's one of the best, most nicest guys on the planet.
Yeah.
Except for he came to our country illegally.
Uh-huh.
So he's subject by law to deportation. Just not to El Salvador.
Okay.
Let's send him to Somalia.
I don't really care about. I guess I care about the court ruling. I don't care about what the deportation. I mean, deportation.
It's moot
I think
at this point. Like, what's there to care about? What's there to do about it?
Well, okay. Let's say. I don't know. That's a good point. The Trump administration, I think, was clever into making this right. They've kind of deported him. Now it's a foreign policy, and they kept saying the judges have no jurisdiction over foreign policy in the United States. That is the sole discretion of the president of the United States.
The whole issue is the withholding order. That's it. Like, so the Trump administration could say two things, and both things it doesn't matter. Number one, they could say, no, we did not make any mistakes. The withholding order does not apply anymore. The judges are wrong. We are right. It's fine to say that. It's fine to look at a judge and I say, you're wrong. The question is consequences of saying so. And with the administration, the Trump administration, there is zero consequence to looking at a judge and I say, you're full of crap. It's the Supreme Court you have to worry about. But anyhow, and the Supreme Court said you've got to facilitate his return, but that doesn't mean you go in with a Marine crew or whatever, a special ops team to pull him out of jail or whatever, because we got to save this guy at all costs. Why? He's an El Salvadoran citizen who's came to our country illegally from El Salvador. Send him back.
I don't care. Okay, but it's 9-0. Like,
yeah, but did you hear the Trump administration spin it?
Yeah, it was like in our favor or something.
Yeah.
It was actually in our favor or something. I don't know how they spun that.
Yeah, so again, this is what I'm getting at. the Trump administration can go middle finger to any interpretation of how the Supreme Court, how you view the ruling. Trump views it as a win for him because all they said was that if El Salvador wants to return them, you shouldn't prevent it. That's all the Supreme Court said, 9-0. Facilitate. Let him back in. But the Supreme Court will never say, oh, you ought to now have a special ops team go in and kidnap him back. They're not going to say that.
No, they can't. Right.
They can't, right. So it's all moot at this point. It's a done deal.
Okay.
And if the Democrats want to view this as see how bad the Trump administration is, feel free. But most people in the United States will look at this situation and say, odds are he wasn't in with the right crowd, this Garcia. Yeah, and he did come in the country illegally. No big loss. No big loss.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Innocent till proven guilty. Yeah, due process. That's another issue.
Yeah.
People are still stuck on this idea due process always involves judges and juries and lawyers and stuff. Due process is when an immigration officer looks you in the eyes and says, you can't come in. That's due process.
Right. It says
Like
you
the stupid, let me put my hard red Republican cap on. The stupid Democrats expect that the millions of people who came into this country illegally, undocumented, let's say the ones that didn't even claim asylum, just came across the border and got through. There's a lot of getaways. They expect that if they're apprehended, that millions of people get juries or judges and lawyers and let's say like a month's drawn out legal proceedings for millions of people. Really? You think that can happen or should happen? That would be a nightmare. And it's all for the sake of, I just love immigrants so much. I mean, I just feel so sorry for them. They just want a better life.
Okay.
That's the hard red.
Hard red.
Cap.
I know. Yeah. Okay. I guess I understand your point about the whole Supreme. I guess yeah. It is kind of like there's nothing they could say. They can't really say anything. They can't do anything at this point to get him back. It just happened, and
Yep.
I guess
It's a done deal. And Democrats are going to basically say Trump bad. But they already said Trump's bad even before this, so no big deal.
But it does make him a little. You would rather this not have happened, I think, right? I think you.
That's a good question. Let me think about it. Because there's a whole bunch of political posturing that one can use with this issue, both against Trump and for Trump. Because hear me out. I can easily say, yeah, it shouldn't happen. They should have obeyed the withholding order. But let's say the Trump administration has hard evidence that they purposely kept away in their back pocket that he indeed was a gang member, like undeniable evidence. Then he can pull that out, let's say a month or two before the next election, and say, hey guys, you blamed us for doing all this, and yeah, we should have obeyed the withholding order, but end result is we were right. Yeah, we screwed up on the process. Yeah, but we were right. This guy was a gang member, and here's the evidence.
Okay.
I mean, you could use something like that as a political tool to really cast doubt in the next time someone blames the Trump administration for something. Trump, you're wrong here. And this would be like clever in an evil way, I guess, but you could withhold information and make people believe that Trump screwed up here, and then pull out your card at the opportune moment just to devastate people. Oh, and then they're going to doubt every time they think that Trump screwed up. They're going to say, is he playing us here? And I think Trump's done that before.
No, I don't think so. You're one of those people that think Trump. Everything is like
no.
2 steps ahead or the deal.
No. I think he has some people in the background who are like that. But Trump is very much what you see is what you get. Like he'll just, whatever's in his brain, he's basically a man who's just orgasmed. You know what? You know, after you have an orgasm, you just say what you think. Like you don't, all your defenses are down. You actually become stupid. Whatever your wife says at that point. So you just have sex, and then your wife says, "Can we buy a $2,000 piece of furniture?" You go, yeah, whatever, dear. You're just like, you're still catching it. Trump's a little bit like that. Whatever he's thinking, he says. And this is why he goes back on himself quite a bit too. Like he said, Ukraine started the Russian-Ukraine war. Ukraine started, and then he backpedaled on that. He called Zelensky a dictator. Then he backpedaled on that. He just says what he thinks and feels that time. That's why it's way more important with a guy like Trump to watch what he actually does versus what he actually says.
Watch what he actually does. But I think it's good to you want to telegraph what you want to do to give people enough time to react. This whole thing of he just whatever he says, and he just invokes national emergency powers to like tariffs on off, immigration policy on off, or what? It's not really on off, but I think this is sort of a dangerous precedent we've set with.
Yeah, I agree. Let me put my Democrat hat on. The major problem Trump has when it comes to these issues, especially like tariffs, is he causes market uncertainty because he says something and you can't believe what he's saying. So when he says tariffs are going to be 20% and that's it, and then all of a sudden the next day it's 10%, and then the next day it's 54%. I'm a manufacturer. How am I supposed to predict and control my supply chains? Like, I get it. I'm a Democrat right now. This is horrible. This is market uncertainty. It hurts real people in the real world with their planning, their budgeting, their business. I just can't see how any country could elect a guy who shoots from the hip like he does and causes so much turmoil like he does. We would have been way better off. Sure, there's weaknesses in Harris, and I get those weaknesses, Democrat hat on, but at least there would have been predictability. You can predict that she's not going to fly off the handle, says things she doesn't mean. Well, maybe, all politicians lie, but basically status quo would have been more the result with a candidate like Harris. And now the Trump voters are getting exactly what they voted for. This turmoil, this uncertainty. See, I can do it, man. I can be a Democrat.
That's why I listen to you, honestly, because you're good at steel manning both sides. You understand both sides of the argument. But you still have these views of you still seem to be more emotionally attached to the MAGA conservative side.
Let me be honest and put all my cards on the table. Even though I'm more dead inside than the average person, yeah, I still have emotions. My emotional triggers is extreme compassion actually causes me an emotional trigger. I dislike strongly when people are too compassionate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the way I was raised, because I was raised very independent. I left home at the age of 15 to go to private schools and then a public school. I lived on my own for a couple years as a 15, 16-year-old. I had to clean up after myself, do my own laundry, cook for myself. I know how to survive by myself. And so when I see these people full of compassion and treating people like infants, oh, you can't do this, you need the government's help, you need our help, how dare you say it's their fault. And I just don't have, when something goes wrong in my life, I look in the mirror and I say, Doug, you screwed up. I blame myself first. And so I have an emotional knee-jerk reaction against this feel sorry forism that a lot of people have. And it's mostly women and old men or men who've been addicted to drugs.
Yeah, I see that. And I would have said, you have a strong adverse emotional reaction to the LGBT community. And that probably comes from the fact that they you would say like they kind of force everyone to feel sorry for them.
No, not that. It's the activists I have a real problem with. I've talked to many on this show, on other shows. I've talked to many queer people, and for the most part, I've had no problems with them, and even had great conversations with them. But it's the ones who are activists who I dislike strongly. And in my opinion, I speak for the majority of Americans. I would say proudly that queer trans activists are more hated in this country than the far right megatypes.
Yeah,
And they did it to themselves.
They did. No, I think, yeah, I think I agree. I think those far left kind of queer activists probably lost the Democrats the election. And
Well, you got to be
I
careful
heard-
of that. Let me put my Democrat hat on. How dare you? How dare you blame the queer community and the queer activists for losing the election? It is the misinformation that the Republicans propagated for months and years prior to the election, and also the misogyny. Like, think about it. Hillary lost, Kamala lost. This
Right.
country is, number one, racist. This country is, number two, is misogynistic. They're not ready for a female president. They've been fed misinformation and they believed it. How dare you blame the queer community for that loss? Shame on you. Okay, I'll put my Republican hat back on.
No, I mean it's part of it. It's not just the queer community, but they definitely they make the right push harder against the left, and it pushes the right further right. And I think ultimately what lost the democracy election was probably inflation. I think
Yeah,
the data kind of shows that already. But the queer community
three
doesn't help
things.
that.
It was
Yeah.
the economy, inflation, immigration, and then I would say the whole, not just trans stuff, but the whole critical theory stuff.
Yeah.
Like teaching these blue states, teaching kids at an early age about the oppressed and their oppressors, not using those languages, but DEI. Oh, like having to go through these absolutely ridiculous, crazy DEI programs at various workplaces. Poor Billy he needs to take 2 steps back because he was raised with 2 parents. But Letitia needs to take 10 steps forward because she's a black woman and with no father in the home. So we can need this idea of equity. We need to take away from John or Paul and give to Letitia to make things equal because that's a compassionate thing to do.
I don't think they do it. I don't know if it's purely out of compassion. I don't know. I think there is something to be said with like people who are on a lower footing. Like if you actually, I don't want to get into this. I don't know enough about this actually. Never mind. I'm not. I'm gonna show my. It just makes sense to me, like, no, yeah. Let's not get into that. I agree with you though. I think the Democratic Party needs to stop pandering to these kind of activists, the loud minority. I think it doesn't help the cause. And yeah, I think they need to be slowly kind of alienated away, and the messaging needs to kind of turn back into.
The biggest fear Democrats have right now is Trump's success. I truly believe that. I made a short on this too. That can you imagine if come 4 years from now the stock market makes all-time highs? Can you imagine 4 years from now inflation is the lowest in 30 years? Can you imagine if the tariff situation leads to not higher inflation but lower inflation and better trade deals? Can you imagine basically the country is better economically? There's more jobs. A lot of jobs come from China back into, or Mexico or Canada back into the United States. Can you imagine if unemployment, it's still low right now, but imagine it goes down to 2%. I mean, this would be the left's worst fear, is that everything turns to the better. When I say everything, I mean the main things. they wouldn't recover from that.
We had it under Biden. Unemployment was perfect. Inflation was back down to again. We don't. You know this, and I don't think inflation can't be or shouldn't be 0%. Unemployment shouldn't be 1%. I think unemployment has to be like 4. Inflation should be whatever the equilibrium is. But we had that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a good point because it was really, really bad under Biden in his middle presidency, and then it got better. But the thing is, there was other issues like the immigration was out of control, and even when Biden had to use executive orders, it was still at pretty high levels. Trump's reversed all that, and immigration so far has not gone up. So far,
no. He's killed immigration and tourism. He's killed complete tourism.
I kind of like that. I mean, I'm looking forward to going to Disneyland without having to wait in line. All these foreigners taking up my spots.
I wonder. I would like to see if there's data released on that. If Disney would ever release if we can.
Tourism's down 19%. I read the other day, something like that.
Yeah, and we have a huge tourism industry. A lot of businesses here, tourist businesses, are gonna see some heavy effects from this.
But the best way to get inflation down to 2%, it's still pretty high. It's at 3. It's 50% over where it should be. But I'm okay with deflation for a little bit, because if you get inflation down to 2%, that means prices are still going up, right?
Right.
But people still find the groceries too high. So let's get deflation. Let's actually cause a little bit of pain and suffering for a year or two, get prices down. And I actually think this, I'm hesitant to say it's the plan, but it might be fortuitous thing that could happen. Let's go into recession for a couple quarters, get prices to actually come down, not just go up more slowly, and then have a turnaround where you have wages going up at the same rate as goods and services, and so you don't lose purchasing power.
But what happens and what happens to jobs? Nobody's spending deflationary period. I mean, nobody's spending their money.
There'll be some people on unemployment.
Probably a lot of people on unemployment.
Yeah, but it will, like GDP will go down. It'll be negative. Yeah.
Okay, so you have deflationary means people are just not spending their money. Like pretty much, there's no consumption.
Yeah, bat in the hatches. Yeah,
businesses are gonna be laying off people left, right, and center.
The people who are smart and who have saved instead of consumed, they'll be fine. Basically, the stupid people who just spend every dime they make, sort of like you going on dates. You spend all your money on women. Yeah.
Right.
Then you're gonna hurt. You're going to wise up and say, maybe I should save more of my money so I'm not reliant on the economy and the government, whatever, that I can ride out a couple of years of bad times.
I don't know if you're okay.
Yeah, no, I am serious.
I don't think that's a good idea. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a good idea to me. I don't know. You can't tell. We talked about this before. You can't tell everybody.
It's not a good idea to save for the worst case scenario.
You can't tell everybody to just save their money, 90% of their.
Well, no, some people can't. I admit that, but we're talking about the really poor. But there are people who waste their money like unbelievably. Like if you make $50,000, $60,000 a year and you buy a new car, you're an idiot. If you make $50,000, $60,000 a year and you buy a new iPhone, you're an idiot. If you make $50,000, $60,000 a year and you have 4 kids already, you're an idiot.
Okay, I mean, I can agree.
Can I get an amen?
Yeah, I guess I can agree with that. Yeah, buy a used car, buy a used iPhone. I guess. Yeah, I agree. But you can't have every person in the United States saving aggressively, because then our economy.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It'd be very painful to switch from a consumer-based society to a saver-based. That it would be a big growing pain. But I think. In my opinion, if you want to be happier in life, be more independent in life. The way you become more independent in life is save. So you are not dependent on the government, not dependent on your friends and on family, that you can actually do things for yourself. And like if my business stopped to 0 starting tomorrow, I'd be okay for years and years and years. Now, I would still be scared for my retirement because I'm only 54. I got another 11 years and he's gone. So I would have a little bit of discomfort, but I'd be okay. My family would be okay because I save. Actually, I want to try an experiment here because I kind of enjoyed putting on my Democrat hat on. I want people in the live stream chat to throw it out any issue, any topic, political issue, political topic, and I'm going to be a Democrat for the next 10, 15 minutes. So, for example, you can say immigration, you can say whatever, any new thing. I want to demonstrate what I hope other people do. I've had this idea for a while now of making videos where if someone tuned in for the first time, they would be convinced I'm a Democrat. I want to show how it's done. Healthcare. I believe that it is in society's best interest for healthcare to be universal. The United States already has a system of Medicare, Medicaid, where the really poor or the really old get basically a type of universal healthcare already. And I think the outcome of expanding that to everyone would benefit society, both economically and morally, health-wise, of course. And if you look at the other civilized nations of the world, of course, they have healthcare and universal healthcare. Most of them do. And their cost per person is way lower than the United States. The United States, the system of healthcare is based on profit, not based on basically helping people and caring for them. And so I think that if you're a person who votes within the United States, this is a big issue for you. And I think you don't have to be emotional about it. You can be reasonable and say it just benefits everyone if we have universal health care. Next topic. Actually, my dog wants out. Hang on. I'm back. Okay, so I'm a Democrat right now. Have you talked to Parker already? Yes, I did. We talked for like a long time. Topic, Golden Nectar, radicalization on the right. Yeah, as a Democrat, I would say that if you look at the actual violence that's committed in this country, most of it, not all, but most of it's come from the right. And for some reason, this country has forced, especially white men, not forced, but have moved them to the radical position. And we as a society have to address this. The Republicans need to own up that they're creating a situation through misinformation, through propaganda. They're leading a lot of people, some of them emotionally unstable, to cause extreme violence in society. And nowhere, the best example of this in recent history is January 6th. Here we have a situation of propaganda, misinformation coming from a politician that has led thousands and thousands of young men, mostly white, to cause heinous destruction and violence. This needs to stop. New topic. What's my overall take with talking to Parker? Yeah, I think he's a nice guy. He talks so fast and so much, and he really does not want to look bad on stream, so he will protect himself. He needs to be a little more vulnerable. Okay, what I'm doing right now is I'm a Democrat now for the next few minutes. So just throw out a topic in the live stream chat, and I'll talk about it, and I'll steel man the position I disagree with. Roger, I'm steel manning. I'm taking the perspective of the Democrats. My goal here is that if someone was just to pop in while I'm taking the position of the Democrats, that they would be convinced I'm a Democrat. Okay, new topic, 51st state. The rhetoric that Trump has used in the past, 6 months or so, of saying that they want the United States should have Canada's 51st state, is wrong on so many levels. The first level is that he is proposing something that is practically near impossible to do, unless, of course, you're talking about invasion. Now, as a Democrat, I don't think Trump would actually use the military to invade Canada and force it to make the 51st state. But if he is serious about that, to use the military, well, that I don't need to expound upon. That is just evil. But on another idea of Trump using this rhetoric to get better trade deals, this is absolutely the wrong way to go about it. Why in the world would you antagonize a partner that we've had for decades to cause this negative resentment and a negative emotion towards the United States? There's no reason to do this. There are ways to achieve your goals. Now, I'm a Democrat, but as I can see, like the Republicans, they could use other means to achieve their goals than actually just to offend people, a sovereign nation. To actually kid around and say that a Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, to call him a governor. This is not presidential rhetoric. This is only harmful. And I think if you're a Republican listening, you can realize this, that it does not help the situation. Sure, it might be funny to some Republicans out there and say, yeah, we're tough, we're the best. But there are real people in Canada who are frightened with this tariff situation, with this 51st state talk. Trump was actually interviewed by Laura Ingraham on Fox News and said that to negotiate with the Canadians is worse than to negotiate with the Russians or the Chinese. Like, think about that. What a stupid thing to say. I highly doubt he means it, but if he doesn't mean it, why in the heck is he saying it? Okay, next topic. Ukraine. Okay. Am I going too long with these topics? Maybe shorten it up a bit. Okay, again, I'm a Democrat. One thing that the United States values, I think, as a people, is sovereignty. That the people can vote in a government, and within their country, they can make sovereign choices within that country. And we as American people should support that in other countries, because we support it in our own. What Russia has done is they have unilaterally walked into a sovereign nation and say, no, this is ours. We would not want that to happen to our country. Why would we want this to happen to the Ukraine? Now, a lot of Republicans will say things like, well, who cares? I mean, what's in it for us? There's a ton of things in it for us. From trading to energy to the whole economic system in Europe. There are practical reasons to support Ukraine and do everything in our power to stop Putin. Now, sometimes that means long, prolonged war. But if you care about defending freedom, defending a sovereign nation's right to exist, then this is a battle worth fighting. Okay, next topic. Buying Greenland from Denmark. This is like the 51st state issue. Again, I'm a Democrat. It is completely harmful rhetoric to threaten, to imply at least, that we can take over Greenland for military purposes. Now, although Greenland is under the jurisdiction of Denmark, that doesn't give us the right to bully our way in and say this is ours. And the people of Greenland have voted on this, and the majority don't want to be part of the United States, and we need to respect that. Next topic. Trans in women's sports. Okay, I'm a Democrat. There are people out there with a real illness. This illness is called dysphoria. And I know a lot of Republicans just feel very icky about this topic. They have a knee-jerk aversion to people who are different than them. But part of the strength of America is accepting people's differences. And some people have this experience, that an internal experience of one gender different than what they were born with. Now, I get, as a Democrat, I get the Republican narrative that you can't prove it scientifically or whatever, but there is some evidence that during development, certain parts of the brain, different sizes, that there is some scientific evidence that people can have more femininity or masculinity compared to the average stereotypes. So now if a person who was born male identifies as a woman, and for most of their life have identified this way, and people see them this way, then why in the world would you not let them compete in women's sports? There is no evidence that trans women outperform biological women, females. There's no evidence of that. And this whole rhetoric that they're winning so much, and yes, there's examples of trans women winning sports, but for the most part, it's such a small percentage. The reason why Republicans are doing this is they're using this as a wedge issue. They're using this as an emotional trigger to divert from other issues. And to their credit, the Republicans have had success in this. But at what cost? The cost is they're hurting real people in a real way. And to me, as a Democrat, it's just not worth it. Next topic. That was a tough one. I did the best I could. Next topic. There should be no billionaires. As a Democrat, society that we currently have in the United States is a mixture between capitalism and socialism. And if we care, if we value that people ought to have things like food, shelter, and clothing, and we have some people who have a disproportionate amount of wealth, where so much wealth is concentrated in the hands of so few, there are tons of problems with that. Number one, the political power they can exert on governments is extreme. Number two, that wealth can be transferred for the benefit of all society. It will even benefit billionaires, for billionaires to give up more of their money through taxation to those in need. How, you might ask, if you're a Republican asking? Think about it. Don't you, as a billionaire, want to live in a society where more people are walking around fully clothed, they feel stable and content in their own homes? They don't feel the need to steal? So if you look back into the 1950s and the 1960s, the tax rate for billionaires, on earned income at least, was very high, 70, 80%. And it did not hurt the economy. In fact, the economy did quite well in that era. Now you can say it's because of coming out of World War II, but the fact remains it did not hurt the economy. I say, and I agree with Bernie Sanders here, that there shouldn't be billionaires. We should tax them to the amount where we can transfer their wealth to people who are more needy to fix all those problems I referred to earlier. and have a more stable, productive, growing economy. It is immoral for billionaires to exist. It is dangerous for billionaires to exist. Next topic. How am I doing? Is any liberals in here watching? Any progressives? I'm not trying to straw man. I'm trying to give an honest steel man position of any issue. So throw an issue out in the live stream chat. I'll give the Democratic answer. When I say steel man, I'm imagining the smartest Democrat friend I know, and I'm giving his or her position. I'm not talking about a fringe. I'm not trying to steel man a fringe position. Disbelief on specialists, experts. Yes, okay. So I'm a Democrat. So many Republicans do not trust the experts. They'll go with their gut, their intuition. This is a dangerous position to hold. The reason for this is our intuitions are often misleading. They're often wrong. And if our society keeps going in this way, where we don't trust the experts, the specialists in their field, I think we as a society are doomed. Where if you start to question and doubt everything that people who are engaged in their field on a daily basis, if we question and doubt them, or we treat their opinion on the same level as someone else, just who's a plumber, what are we doing? Here's an example. There are people who talk about the Palestinian-Israeli war and have no clue what's going on. They will defend Israel to the hilt, just blindly, not realizing the facts on the ground of the atrocities the Israelis have committed. Where experts agree that A, B, and C has been done, but because of this knee-jerk reaction, maybe they're evangelical Christian and think of end times, they have this, at no matter what, we support Israel. This has to stop. We have to start listening to the experts, the historians who do this for a living, to parse out and nuance out the real issues that's going on and the tragedies that have occurred. Next topic. Again, I'm steel manning the reasonable democratic position. All businesses should be run by workers. Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay, Democrat hat on. I think history has shown that if given a chance to cheat, corporations will cheat. Corporations will take advantage of their workers to increase their bottom line. There are many examples of where if I can hire a person for $10 an hour or $5 an hour, I'm going to choose the 5. This is the problem with a capitalistic society. The problem is it's a race to the bottom. And then when you have a situation like this, where workers have no power, then you end up having wages far below what it takes and requires to live, to own a home, to start a family, to have that white picket fence experience. Now, I understand the Republicans in that they don't want forced unions, and I am actually sympathetic to that. But I think most reasonable people would agree that if the workers who actually are doing the work, who are actually the ones creating the value, if they are not being compensated fairly, if they're being mistreated, then those corporations ought to be punished by the government, that there should be laws made. And this is why, as a Democrat, I support more unions. And unions should be honest and build trust within the working community and not take advantage of the workers themselves. But if they do it properly, unions can actually lead to the middle class growing stronger, that people can now maybe even have single income homes and one parent can stay home and raise their kids. Like, let me appeal to the Republicans listening. We need more unions. We need more workers' rights so we can get back to the Leave It to Beaver days. Wouldn't that be great? Where if a woman wanted, I'm speaking as a Democrat, I'm speaking to Republicans now, I'm appealing to them. Wouldn't it be great if we had unions that could raise the wages so that mother can stay at home and raise her own children? Next topic. How am I doing? This crap still sounds ridiculous coming out of Doug's mouth. Doug hasn't accused anyone of racism yet, so I'm having trouble believing this performance. You got to remember, Roger, that not all Democrats are crazy. I am pretending to be basically me, a reasonable, smart person, but now a Democrat, and how I would respond to various issues. Yeah, sometimes I incorporate Bernie. Sometimes I incorporate, the middle. There's not one type of Democrat. There's not one type of left-wing person. I can go extreme fringe left if you want me to. Any other topics? Throw them out there. I'm going to clip this out probably and make a standalone video. Hey, Michael, when your IQ hits 90, sell. Smoking blunts. Okay, the topic is illegal drugs. As a Democrat, I would say most drugs ought to be legalized. Now, of course, there are exceptions, and reasonable people can disagree on what those exceptions should be. But I would say that, for example, the making marijuana illegal has harmed way more people than marijuana itself would harm. And there are many drugs like that, which I think people should have the freedom to choose to use. If you look at how the African American community has been devastated by making certain drugs illegal, it's caused many fathers to be in jail instead of being at home and able to raise their kids. It's this systemic racism in this using this particular way that have caused so much misery within certain communities. And for this reason, as a Democrat, I support most drugs being legal. This is more of a libertarian view. That's a tough one to do with a Democrat hat on. Nationalize oil. Oh, that's an interesting topic. Ooh. As a Democrat, topic is nationalize oil. So I'm a Democrat who wants oil nationalized. Okay. Energy, mostly the form of oil, is probably one of the most important things in American society. It's still, unfortunately, is what powers most of the things we use in this country. And because of its importance, this is why it should be nationalized. Now, would you want an aircraft carrier, a tank, a Tomahawk cruise missile to be put in the hands of a private industry? Of course not. In the same way, oil can be weaponized against countries and our own country. And for national security reasons, I believe as a Democrat, there should be no Shell oil. There should not be Exxon. that the government should be in control of all oil production. And in a way, they already are, because they control the leases on government land, where a lot of in oceans, where a lot of drilling takes place. So we're not that far from it. So if you're a Republican listening, you should support people like me, a Democrat, who believe you should nationalize the oil industry. Hey, that was not bad. Okay, one more topic. Throw any topic out there. Any political topic. I will still man the Democrat side. I will still man a reasonable, smart Democrat side. I will try my best not to straw man. I will take a position that a lot of Democrats actually take. Inflation. You got to be more specific. I already talked about the 80% tax rate, Harley. If you rewind a bit. Eating cats. Already talked about Israel. What the golden nectar? I think you're on the right track. Are you talking about tariffs? Might as well do tariffs, because inflation and tariffs kind of go hand in hand. Oh, vaccines is another good one. Okay, I'll do the inflation and tariffs first. Okay, I'm a Democrat right now. Trump's whole tariff policy is a huge mistake, in my opinion, as a Democrat. Number one, tariffs are charged. Some Republicans are correct. The tariffs are charged at the border and to the importer. But any smart company who imports products from other nations, they will pass that tariff down to the consumer. What does that do? That raises the price of those goods to the consumer. Now, even if it doesn't raise prices to the consumer, and the company takes that in, bites the bullet, shrinks their margins. What tariffs also do is it serves as a signal to other companies, other competitors, that they too can raise their prices. So there's a huge risk with what Trump is doing. Trump is gambling with the United States economy right now. And I do not understand how people could vote for this gamble and vote for a person like Donald Trump. The tariffs that he's imposing are so sweeping. Most of the time, they're not targeted. It is a reckless, it's like throwing a bomb on a city of civilians hoping to catch one bad guy. It's just a sweeping way of trying to get his greedy hands to make money. Now, he thinks he's going to make money for the country. But he doesn't realize, Trump is so stupid, he doesn't realize that by raising tariffs to such a high amount like he proposed, that will actually cause no imports, and therefore you will collect no tariffs. What an idiot. What else as a Democrat do I want to say about tariffs? Oh, that board he brought out the day. Remember the other day? He brought out a board with all the tariffs that countries supposedly are charging the United States. That was a lie. Trump lied about the tariffs imposed by other countries on the United States. What he did is some weird, stupid math, incorporating exchange rates, which are oftentimes out of control of governments. Trump also lied that tariffs are not a tax against its citizens. They are indeed a consumption tax towards its own citizens, if the company that imports passes it on to the consumers and if the consumers buy it. That's just science. So for the people who voted for Trump, what you voted for is a liar. He lied about the tariffs and the consumption tax. He's manipulating numbers and figures to suit his own purpose. He caused the stock market to drop, 10, 15% in a matter of days. He's causing uncertainty in the markets. Republicans, I hope you're happy with what you voted for. You're starting to realize the pain and suffering that a crazy man like Trump can cause. Okay, now I'll do vaccines. One of Trump's most stupid choices was to nominate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the Secretary of Health. Here we got a guy who is, let's be honest, he's an anti-vaxxer. He claims he isn't. But everything in his actions, what he does, says otherwise. He causes people to doubt the efficacy of vaccines that have worked for decades. Now, what does this mean? This means that some people will listen to a guy and say, well, maybe he's right. Maybe vaccines do cause autism. Maybe I won't vaccinate my child. And then that child dies of some disease. We cannot play around with stuff like this. We cannot play around with human health and the what ifs. We need to listen to the experts and not get this guy coming in who has no business talking about what he's talking about. And let me say before I go that one of Trump's most dangerous things he ever did was to stand up and seriously say that we need to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians from their homeland. He said this without remorse, without blushing. Republicans, this is the man you voted in, who is willing to uproot people from their homes and move them to, I don't know, Egypt or wherever. And then Trump, the stupid dictator, fascist, racist man, says we're going to make Gaza into like some golf course resort area. The selfishness, the conceit, no idea about foreign policy to propose such a thing. Republicans, you voted for this. How would you like it if some crazy man representing the most powerful nation in the world just said you need to leave where you were raised and born? You need to go. But this is who Donald Trump is. True HZ Record says, rest in peace, Doug, he's gone woke. That's the point. I'm trying to get people, if they were just to pop in, they would think for sure I'm a Democrat and a woke person. I could do this all day long. I could sincerely steel man, not straw man, various Democratic positions. Some people on the left can't even utter the words from the Republican side. Like, it would be hard for them to sit in my chair and then for me just to throw out topics and give the Republican side without saying but. There would be some emotional trigger within them that they couldn't just say the Republican, steelman the Republican side and just leave it be. But I'm just going to leave it be. All those topics that I just listed out and steelman the Democrat side, I'm not going to push back against myself. I'm just going to let it be. That should be a song. Let it be. Well, I think the Beatles did do that song. Okay, I'll take a look at the chat for the next 2 minutes. Sorry, Michael. Sorry. I couldn't get you on. It was fun watching you, though. You're very animate. Did we miss any topics? Oh, we missed immigration, right? That'd be a tough one. I think the hardest one to do was the men and women's sports. To try to defend that. I did healthcare already, Sneed. I will go back and I will clip all the steel manning on the various issues, put it together in one video. I'll title it something like PineCreek Doug becomes a Democrat. I touched on, yeah, I did DEI. Oh, or did I? No, I didn't. Yeah, there's so many topics I could do. My apologies to Kamala Harris. She was scheduled to come on the program, but we ran out of time.